what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming,
whose broad stripes
and
bright stars through the
perilous fight
o'er the
ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there.
oh,
Say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free
and the home of the brave.
home of the brave, home of the brave.
Ko kore ke hufanga I he ngahi tala whaapapa katoa peku o swhai atu mi he paenga o he wāke tari wholau I he aho whakakoloa koe ni. Kai ata mua ke te au a whapalu whahoko proklama atu pia mi he BYU Provo Substation ko ia a he paenga o he wāke tari wholau. Ko e aho whakakoloa eni pia utau wa usia le rei ai ahoni ko ia ko e ofa ta e whiwhi manako ai tamai hewani o ne tāpui kina a ki tau tolu o tau wa usia le rei ai ahoni. Pea I hene pehe, tuku mau pe ki tau tuku ai whakamalo mo e whakawhetai maalunga taha ki a teia. Ko hiko e tau ausia ai ahoni pea mono ngahi ngafa pea mo e ngahi whatongia ke kehe whakangāue ke whamiri ka mawhoke ngai whangawaka ko ia o kumo me ai. Pea o tau whiawhia mao ai pe I ngai tāpuaki ko ne whai ma ki tau tolu o lava ki tau to e wheki te ngaki I he pule lulu katoa pe mi he paenga o he wāke tari whalau. Pea mo I ngahi polo kalama ke he kehe katoa pe o ku o atu me I he paenga o he wāke tari whalau I he ahoni pea ku Whiawhia mao ai pe ai motu a whai whanongia o ko lavei o ku lau maarie pea la koe whia le rei mao ai pe ai ne awhiwhio ai tamatu I tau whahau tupo wono kau maa whoki ai tahine kuini na naspau utuku aho pea moe whare o haa moe o fo. Whamalo ko lau maarie pea hou eiki moe haa mata pure kau maa whoki ai tonga katoa pe o ku mea mai ki he paenga o wāke tari whalau me he ngai tapa ke he kehe o I kolope. Pea taitale reihena ki motolo ku mo mea mauhai pe pea mei Francais, Itali, ka mawhoke Austria, pea mo Sueteni, pea mo ngahi whanua kehe ko ia o Europe. Pea ko ki motolo ko ia o ku mo mea mai me Asia, taitale rea ki motolo ku mo mea mai me Siaina, ki motolo ku mo mea mai me Taiwan, Hong Kong, ka mawhoke Malaysia mo Singapore, kai tau te whitu ka teki motolu o kumo mea mai me he the land of the rising sun. Pea mei Siapani, pea mei Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku, ka maa whoki a Kyushu, aia oku iai a he prefecture ko ia o Fukuoka, pea iai whoki pea mo Okinawa, ko mafola a he tonga I he the land of the rising sun. Pea tariari whiawhia ki mautolu ki he paenga o he wāke tari whalau. Ki mautolu ki mo mea mai me he whanua o I kare. I ngai state ke he kehe e ni manoa o I kare. Kau maa whoki a ngahi territories o I kare. O ku tari whiawhia mau ai pea ki mautolu ki he paenga o he wāke tari whalau. Pea lawe I he motu a whai whatongia, koe taimi whaingata a whokieni, koe taimi eni o ku whakataha I mai e whaamiri, ki he mau mea tokoni mo teu ia mea tokoni, pea hoko le waia, koe kariloa ia ono poni. Pea koi ai o ku ato e whamalo, lo tohunga ka teki motolu, ia mō tuku taimi ka mō mea mai. Taitari whiawhiai pea ki motolu mi he Land Down Under, mi Australia, ka maa whoki o he the Land of the Long White Clouds mi Nuusila. Mauha awhalahi kia teki motolu o mō whahauko ngai ngau e lahi pia mi hena ki tau pore ai tonga mo whiawhiai. Motolu ka tau beo ku mō mea mai pia mi tonga eiki u taitari whiawhia ki motolu ki he paenga o he wāke tari whalau I he aha whakakoloa koe ni. Kai ke ngāla whokia ki motolu o ku mō I neongo o ku kāwātuia I he ngai territories ka kou loto peke highlight ki motolu mi he kau tau malu I whanua ko ia a Amerika I Guam, kau maa whoki a American Samoa. Pea taitari whiawhia a ki motolu, ma o ai pē ki he paenga o he wāke tari whalau. Hounga ka teki mautolu, ku mau whaiwhatongia me paenga, hau mō tukutaimi, pea moho mō mea mai, pea mō eiki pē ka mō share te e tau polokalama I he ahoni. Tumoa ke taitari rea ki motolu e siare iongi pea ka heri ko ia pa tau whoki mai o toki hoko atu. Malo.
In Tonga they say, malo lele. In Fiji they say, pura vinaka. In Samoa they say, talo falava. In New Zealand they say, ki ora oe. In Hawaii they say, aloha oe. But in America, the happy day. Fia maupe. In Tonga they say, malo lele. In Fiji they say, pura vinaka. In Samoa they say, talo falava. In New Zealand they say, ki ora oe. In Hawaii they say, aloha oe. But in America, the happy day. Fia maupe. Awe, te vai na tahiti. Whakarawhetara oe, alomi e. Awe, te vai na tahiti. Whakarawhetara oe, alomi e. Tahiti nu ia te whare aue, tauga erea. Mama, ia te uri aue, pea te urua. Aue,
Whamalo pito hau eki mo e hamata pūreha mō tukutaimi ka mō mea mai ki he pāenga o wāke tari whalau I he aho whakakoloani pea o ku hangeu ki I whakatonga I he lofa pea mi he makahoko walu o ku iai ai ki I pupunga ika I he wheitu uko ia he motu ko lofanga pea ku o puna pongpongia rewa ai lofa mono taimi ko ia au totonu ke puna I he ono e fiafi ke hiwa e fiafi a iuta. Kaike, oku taritari whiawhia ki mōtolu ki he paenga e wāke tari whalau, ho iki mo e hamata pūre, pea malo ai ngau e lahi pea mi hena. Tumo ke tuku atu haki fo I hiwa, ke tau kamata aki pea tau toki lue mamari ai pe ke ngai mea mahu inga ko ia o e fiafi whakakoloa koe ni. Koloto ki tau ki whanongo ki he kalapu hōlanga, tahaia ngai kalapu, sae mau pe e nau ngā hiwa, ka heri koe apa tau toki hoko atu.
toru e.
Walau formal ke ben
Ben pito kai mo kau na ave mo
Malo pito, whamalo pito hoiki mo e hamtapure, ko kalapu holanga ia. Mo e lave maari mai tahaia ngahi reo whakafofa mi tonga eiki. Pea i he fiafi koe ni koe tahawake nia a he fiafi oku te upehe koe tā puaki mai ope ke te au ke ulere mai o whai ha whatongia mo ki mo tolu o ku mo mea mai i ngai tapa ke kehe o i kolope. Taitari whiawhia ki mo tolu ka pau mo mea mai i he Facebooka, YouTube, kau maa whoki ai application ko ia ai wāke tari whalau. Oa na ngalo ko e application ai wāke tari whalau o ku taitotongi, pia ku free mai ope ai application ko ni. Koe taimi koe te ke mea tuai ki loto i he application ai wāke tari whalau o kuiai ngai programa live ko toa pe o kuiai, pe kai ke toe hela hano toi kumi hake programa ko ia o hoko mai. I ka ia ko ia pe, au toe whao atu e siontola o makahiri a ngai programa kehe ai, ai mo ngahire ti o kehe o kui loto. Pea mo ngahi tuaki ko toa pe o whahoko atu i he pāinga e wāke tari whalau. Pea wai whoki a ngai station ni ai ko te whanongo hiva pe. Ngahi hiva wha ngawe a ke reti o tonga, ngahi hiva whakatonga, ka maa whoki a ngai hiva whakapalangi e di. Pe koe remix mai e ki nau tolu, koe kau punake o tonga, i ono poni. Pea mo ngahi tā mea rea, kai koe toi tā mea papa. Kai ke o koe ai kotoa ai ngahi u polokalama koe ni. Pea te ke lau whoki o ngawe aki maua i pe ai dial up. Ke teki mō tolu ko ia o koe ai hamo kau taureka reka. O na ngalo, koe kau taureka reka, koe uhinga o tau tuuai, o toi mamaoangi e tau sio ke ngai hakau ko ia o e mo uini. Heu tau tuu i he ngahi uma o i kau saianiti. Pea koe nau ngahi wheilau lau ko ia ane a whi o ku mātu u ngai e tau fia, pea haka i he langi ko tau e ngai tāpuaki ko ia o e ahoni. Pea o totonu ma o e pē ke oanga teki nau tolu ai ofa o toi huluange pea makeheangi ke kau taureka reka. Pea whamalo ia a ki nau tolu e ngai ngauere reina nau whai ane a whi o mātu u ngai e tau i heni i he ahoni. Pea i he taha whoki o ngahi mea awa o kau mai ai koe website ko ia ai pāinga i wāke tari whalau. Ai ia koe wāke tari whalau USA, koe vtfusa.com. Pea koe whika ko ia ke dial up, koe tolu ono noa, tolu hiwa walu wha ni menima. Tolu ono noa, tolu hiwa walu wha ni menima. Pea nge koe lau ko ia ai tangata eiki mehe utulongo a, kai kehe kone si mamao atu. Pehe pongpongi, whahawa rewa ai pāinga o i wāke tari whalau ke mau meai a ngai keresi. Pea me he re tio whakalotu ko ia ai pāinga o i wāke tari whalau. Pea te nofo ai pe ai, taimi kai ho atau te ki whanongo pe ke ngai station ke. Pea hange pe, o ko te whakamoko i he ki lalo mango ko ia i uta. Pea whamalo mao hei pēke teki mō tolu ho eiki mo e haamata pūreha no share e tau polokalama. Mō eiki pe ka mō share e tau polokalama. Pea koe uhinga pea maratuunga ko ia o he vahe o e ahoni. He oku lahi a he kakai unau whehui whikau aki mo e kahi pea mo e kansa. Neonga pena e whaalawe ai ki mua ke kahi. Ka koe uhi koe tau molo mui wa e peeni i ngahi he paloparema koe koe kansa, pe tau alu rewa o talanoa whakafoi tui ke kansa koe ia o ngahi konga ke kehe o sino, koe ha a ngahi treatment koe ia o whai e tainimi, pe koe ha rewa ho o mea te ke whai whikau aki pe moho o mau mea tokoni, pe moho o whamiri. Koe he ku whakatonga i he ngai social media o kauai ai Facebooka. lahi au pito ho tau kainga, tau te fito ki haa whawhine ku more e nau mo ui ko uhi ko kansa. Pea oku au tui au ia, pea au tui ai motu a whaifatongia, ka pau te tau mahino i ai kansa, mo ngai tuunga kehe, ngai konga kehe o i kansa, mo haa ai ngai whai to oko ia, oku whalakalaka i he tainimi, te tau lava rewa o whai ai ngai mea whikau aki me tau mau mea tokoni, ko haa e tau mea e whai ka pau ku iai ha tō konga ho tō whamiri u mau ki nau tolu he kansa. Ko tui koe mea ia o ku mahu inga. Pea neongo koe ngahi slaiti koe ni o ku i he rea whakapapālangi ka o mo wanga maheni mau ai pē me he paenga i wā ke tari whalau me he substation koe ni e lahi ange pē ke tau wahe koe ni i he tau rea pe koe rea whakatonga. Pea i he lera koe a programa o ki he whitu tolu noa te tau ki break me ai pe tau Colossia ki San Diego, California ki he whewhine tonga ko ia ko Eni pea ko he whewhine ko laui tau ene ngawe i he market industry. Whikau aki pea moe launi, pea moe ngahi umea pehe. Ke wahe he ilo na a tokoni atu ki a te koe i taimi o ke whemau ai ke whakatau hao api i whonuan. He wai taimi lahi, whemau whakatau api ka ukai ke ilo i a whonga. Pea kohono wā, o koe kakai a heni, o ku tau nia tolu ngofulu, whangofulu e nau nofo i Amerikani o nau kei totongi reni pe ki nau tolu. Pea ukai ko ha tuku hifo ki nau tolu ka ku alu ai renia he tainimi ho iki mo haa mata pure mo hanga whakatonga i inflation rate o maalunga ngia ia teki nau tolo ku nau totongi ko ia e nau markets. Pea i he houa whakaosi e prokalama ko ia o e ahoni, tai whoki mea e toroa me he mga aue whakataha me he makahowalu a toke tā tō masi haalaki ke toi wahe atu i ngai mea ko ia nei kai ke osi ko ia hono o atu i he wike ko osi. Mo haa whakatonga i hau eiki mo e haa mata pūre. I he taimi ko e ko manatui o ku ko e kau ai mātu atonga koe mau pē ngai fo i whakapona pēa le tai ho nau tupenu. Ko ngai fo i whakapona ko ia ko he kuanga maheni o wha iai ai ki tola. Pea i he whahinga nihi o ku iai e nau ki i puha kurei. Pe koe fo i tapaka. Pe koe haa pe e whahinga mea o ku whakapona ko ia e ki nau tolu. Pea koe taime nihi ko i kakai peheni. Tuku mena tau ki loto ke nau mawhana i he paenga, i he ofa, ai o tua kau mafoki ai o ngoi ko ia o e tonga. Neongo ko e pālangi ka une mau ai loto tonga. Ke vete ai whakapona pea tuku mai ki loto ke aonga ki he tonga. Ko iai e hoe ki mo e haamata pūre. Ko e uhinga o e wahe o e ahoni. Pea ko kore whakamore pe ukai ko ha langaki ha manatu ki ha taha, pe ko ho ofa anga, pe ko e kainga, pe ko e maheni, na si māloloa te ko e uhi ko e kansa. Ko e uhi, ko e mālolo ko ia e troua e ku whine eiki i he kansa me ta hiwa walu, pea moe lere e ngai whekumi, pea whai pea moe ngahi u mea whakasai nisi o whikau aki mo i kansa ke ilo i pe guanga whewhe a anga ko ia o i kansa. Kia te au ko i kansa o ku mei ofi au pita hono runganga ki he wheke. Ko ne alat pe e wheke ki ha wheitu o lan mata, pe lan mata e wheke. Pera pau o ku hange o ku wheitu ko ia o ki lan whakapopo uri, pe lan whakapopo uri e wheke. Pe ai pe taime nihi ko ori riu ia, pe hola ia ki a wheitu ke. Ko e natula o i kansa, e ne tupu ko ia me ngai wheitu ke kehe o i sino, oku iai pe hano ki kehe kau mahalo pehe ko e pesete e hiwa noa oku nau tatau ko toa pe ai kansa. Ko ki pesete pe hongo fulu o toki wha ma vahe ia e kansa ko ia e atamai ma kansa ko ia o e maa pe ko e kofua pe ko e atepiri pe ko te hape ngai konga o e sino o e tangata. Pea i he vahe ko e ni o e ngahi u slaiti ko e ni ho eki mo i haamata apure o kuai pe mahalo ngai slaiti ai ko whaamu pe ke tau mau ai ulunganga whaapa pea ko whenga ke vahe pe ngai slaiti ko hihi wheolufi ai no fo sio pe mo o mea mai pea i hene pehe o ku lerei mau pe ki he whanongo ai whamiri me ho o kui hono wa kui hono ulua ki pea moho o ngo mātua pea moho o hoa pea moe whanau moe whamoa puna o ku seifi ai whainga polo kalama koe ni koe mo ui lerei aia te tau tala noa he koe tau mu alahia koe mo ui lerei ka o ku loto ke tau ki i tō e whakamamafa o e ahoni ke kansa pea moe kahi kansa pea moe kahi koe ha ai kahi koe ha ai kansa koe ha rewa a e na whikaunga aki ai kansa pea moe kahi mana tu i foku tau osi tala noa ki ai e ngai taimilahi koe kahi o ku ikai koe kansa ia pea koe kansa o ikai koe kahi ia ka o ku iai e na whikaunga aki ai kansa pea moe kahi pea i he ahoni ho eki moe haamata pule o ku ko whaamu pe e mahino le rei ai tuunga o i kansa moe kahi pea moe anga ko ia e na whikaunga aki koe uhi ke lava ke tau toe tokangange ke tauhio tau ngai whamiri ke toi mo ui le rei ange mo manatu ke taimigo tau mo ui le rei ai whaingofua tau ngai whatongia ki ho tau ngai hoa whatongia ki tau whanau whamogopuna pea mo ngai whatongia ki he ngahi whungamaka ko toa pe o ku mou me ai pea taimi pe o kuai ha mahamahaki i he sino o hataha o i konga e whamiri pea o ku e sia rewa ai whamiri he ukuiai ai ongo o i tonga ai ongo i loto mamahi whea kaunga mamahi aia ko ngai ongo whakatohi tapu ko e tau mo aia mo e vahe ia e whaiko ia i he whiawhini ka go pe ke tumo ke tuwa haki fo i tuwa ki heni ai mo tau fo i whasiko tau foki mai peko ia ku tau mau au pito ke tau hoko atu malo.
Spring is here and summer is just around the corner. So be social, be boosted. CDC recommends boosters for everyone who's vaccinated and age 12 or older. A booster adds an extra layer of confidence to your social life. Over time, vaccines may become less effective at preventing COVID. Boosters reduce your chances of getting COVID and can double your protection against being hospitalized if you do get it. Need more information? Talk to a health worker. Paid by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Koe whanonongo eni me pot ngā aue puri anga Amerika kuni toka ngai kina mo ulelei ai kakai. Whakapapau i oku ke malu i hao whanau mo whamiri e whonga lelei taha teke lava ai a koe huhu malu i COVID. Ko os ngahi makehe ai huhu malu i ma ailonga i whanau tau nima ki e tau taha taha. Koe ahoni kua me te tau pe ai mau he COVID e kakai lalahi mo e longa i whanau. Kua whapapau i whoki koe toko nima ko toa pe o mau he COVID-19 koe toko taha ai koe longa i whanau. E ke lewa ki o toke tā, ha whahinga whehu i whikau aki mo e huhu malu i, pia kumi lewa ha wheitu e anga huhu o whitaha ki a koe i e website www.vaccines.gov. Whakapapatu me pot ngāwe pure anga Amerika o kune toka ngai kina e mo uilelei a kakai piko US Department of Health and Human Services.
Whamalo pita ho iki mo e hamata pule mo tu taimi ka mo mea mai ki he paenga e wā ke tari whalau. Tari whiawhia ma o he pēa ki mo tolu ko ia o mo mea mai ki loto I he Facebooka. Mo e social media whamalo ho mo lava mai. Ka mo iki pē mo a ka share te tau polo kalama. Mo tolu pēa me he api ko mapelu mo e lau me he otu kinekina. Ka maa foki a lata kofe mo whatuha mumu. Molo ta ane me makahovalu, tari whiawhia ki mo tolu ki he paenga o e wāke tari whalau. Tuku ha whamalo, lahi ma o e pē ki he pure lahi ki a Santolau Makaheri, ka mawhaka ono hoa. Emily Toff Mahiri ko e production manager ia e wāke tari whalau, ke ngai ngāwe. Lahi ko toa pē ukwhai he ako toa pē, ko e Stacey whakalotu ko ia ai paenga, ka mawhaki ai Honorable Mary Man la tu taulahi ko e polisi ai paenga, hono tokangai ai ngai ngāwe ko toa pē, moe, ki nau tolu ko toa pē unau fua whatongia I he paenga o e wāke tari whalau, mi ngahi substation ke he. Ko e taumu afukia o e ahoni, ai rewa ko e ke tau laki sio ki he kahi, ko e ha ai kahi, pea ko ne mahino ko ia pea tau hoka lewa ki he kansa, pea mohono anga ko ia ai whingawe aki ai kansa pea moi kahi. Kaike na whingawe aki ka uhanga he kansa o hangi o ku hu tae whakalao ai kansa ki he sistemi ko ia aia o tau I koe kahi. Ko hingoa whakapapalangi o sistem ko e nia o kui ko lymphatic system. Ko e ngai whehu I ko ia nei o mai o kuanga whewhe ko e talu e mausio ki he ngai mea ko ni I he taimi ko ia piwai u Hawaii o ku te lava sio ki he lymphatic system o e ko kore pē ke u hufanga I he talamalu e whonua ka maa whoki a ngahi talwhapapa ko toa pē ko whaat me paenga ka ngau aki mua ngai rea o mahino ngofua ke tau whepotano aki he whiawhini. Pea me he kuri o au ki he anga, pea au kau ki ai pea moe cats. Pea moe ngahi monuman ke he kehena mau ngawe aki I he taimi ko ia. Pea au te lava pe o atu he ngahi u tai pe ko e mea whakalanu lanu I te hanga o huhuat ki he whainga monmanu koe ni. Pea moe ngahi ka o se ni. Pe te lava rewa o sio ki he lymphatic system. Ka pau te ngā ke lanu pulu ten. Ko te sio ke ngai mea kou ke lanu pulu. Ko e system koe ni, ko e kauen ha sistemi o ku mahu inga. Pea ko e rea whakatonga le rei ke ngau aki ko sistem. Hui pe ko sistem, koe ton ke ui ko sistem. Koe loi punga hene ni hanga o whae fo i translate whakatonga ko ia. Kau ia he translate ia maulalo au pito. Ko lymphatic system, ko e mea ko ia o ku alu ke system ko ni o koe hono lanu. Pea ko hono lanu o ku hange ko e lanu ko ia o e kapau te ke to hasioka ki mo tolu ko na fa kai hasioka ko ia pe mi he sioka e fai ako i elementary school pe ko e high school kapau te ke hanga o momosi e sioka pe rinke Hawaii ko e lanu ko ia o e sioka mo e vai ko e tatau tof pe mo e lanu o e lymphatic system pe mahalo kono te ai e taha ko i mo tolu na fa ngawe aki ai a inu a pere intia. Ko e te inu peha foi a pere initia he kai ke toi ngalo a hono i fo. Pea mo e whainga o ko te mau i he taimingo ia o te inu ai ha a pere intia. Ko e lanu ko ia me mi hange o ku whaui he kau papalangi hange milky. Ka koe lanu e lei taha ko usio iai i he whahinga o tangata, mo e whahinga monu manu koe ni, pia mo e hika o tahina o lava koe o shea tu, ai he ane nai, koe lanu ia, o e mea koe ia oku i he lymphatic system, o kai ke kau ai, ai toto aluki ai, mohanga whakatonga ai, pia kono lanu toto nuia o e lymphatic system, aia kono ai e taha, koe system koe ni, whakataha i ki naua pia mo e cardiovascular system. Ai koe tau pehepe koe cardiovascular system pe koe anga ko ia ai takai ko ia ai totoho e halanga kālawa. Whakataha i pia mo e lymphatic system kono kakato ia o e system ko ia ki anga o e alu ai ngahi mea ku te mau mea tokoni me iai o atu koe mea le rei ki ngahi konga ke kehe o e sino. O mai rewa ai ngahi u waste ke ave ke ngai feitu u tatonu ke tuku atu ki tua me e sino. Ka oku maari e aianga hono whau he otua pea he kaipike te atahia to e potoang he otua. Whau he otua ai whainga mea koe ni uhi u sivi e he kofua ke manatu i ke tauhi maupe e ngai minerals uhi u lerei ki nau tolu ia ki anga o ngai konga ke ke ho sino ka o te kau ngai minerals ki he hui pea koe taimika u totonu ko ia ka pade mo whatonga i koe te alu ko ia o mo tuange pea koe ai whahinga nihi o kui kai ke lava o tuuhanga tonu o ku mo oni pe ia o tau mo tua pea o ka pau te tau mau ai ngahi u mea tokoni pea mi natula pe koe plan pace. Pea ka pau lewa o kai ke loko mau ia, tatau lewa ke te ngawe aki ai ngahi u dietary supplement, ke ngahi minerals mo ngahi vitamini. Ai lewa koe hānai ai mahu inga o lymphatic system o ku konga lalahi e ua. Konga uluaki o ku nehanga o whakapalanisi ai anga ko ia o e vai e sino ko ia o e tangata. Patau pepe ko sino e tangata o ku kau ki ai a whawhine kau maafo ki tau whanau. Pea o wanga whewheha no whakapalanisi hange koe ni. Koe kofu wa kapau o ku lahi au pito ai vai e sino. Manatu i foki. Ho eiki moe haamata apure. Ko tau sino. Me mei whakaavarisi ke pese te fitu noa koe vai. Ai rewa o kui ai ngahi vai me ngai feitu u kehe o sino. Hange koe ni. Koe mea tokoni ko ia au tau mau. O iai vai iai. Ulua kia kono wa. Koe vai ko ia o ku tau inu. Koe vai e taha. Koe sosi e taha o vai. Pea ko hono tolu. Koe taimiko alato ai ngahi mea tokoni peheni ki he ke te pea whae ne ngahi ngāwe. A watu ki he ngahi konga ke he ko ia o e digestive system. Pea koe haurewa pa moe vai I he mea tokoni. O koe ai e whainga process i ai. Ai rewa koe kono uhinga ia me nofo I he pesete fitu noa ai vai. Ai au ki mahalo ki lahi angea a ki nau tolu ko ia ai whanau I ki koe taimi koe au te au ke tau ni manoa pia ki holo pe ai vai ki lalo. Ka pau te tau whakapeseti. Tau pehe pe koe tau whirita ko I api. Mo mana tu I ngai whirita ko I ai otu kine kina ka maafo ke makau walu. Ka maafo ke vai ko tāpi ngā. Taaki moia ka. Pea koe te sio mau pe ke whirita pe ko hasima vai oku kapau ko ha feitu oku nofo mau pe ai re volo ko e vai hangi ko ha ki fo I mea o ki lanu kehe ai. Koe aia koe tuunga mau ai pe ia ku ia e vai. Koe tahani e uhinga ho e ki moe hamata apure koe taimi ko ia oku winta fo kien. Oku mahino au pito ai samaia. Uhi oku vela pa ku loto mau pe ke te inu. Koe winta oku faa mo unga loa ia teki tau tolu kai tau te fito ke he tau kau tau reka ke nā winu mau pe. Ai peha te ki I fo I maanga vai pe e taha I he hawhi houa. Koe ne le rei taha aia. Mo mantu, ka paurewa au pe se te fitu noa a lahi o he vai he sino ko ia o tangata. Koe ne holo pe vai ke he ono nima, pe koe ono noa, pe koe nima noa, koe lahi angea ai fie I noa. Koe talatu ia he sino, osi hono hanga he computer ko ia o e sino, ma whaatala noa ke ai pe mo tautapa ke eri kaufusi, o tala mai ke te kita, ko fie inua, ko hiu ku holo ai vai. Ko harewa ai kaunga holo ai vai ke sino. Ko taimi koe holo ai vai ki lalo, he koe ngahi u process ko toa pe he sino I tangata, toton ki ai vai. Pero pau rewa kai ke ia u ai vai ke tuunga o ku iai, pe o ku iai rewa ai whainga taa. Hangi koe ni, ka pau te ke whakau kai mo tolu ko ia o ku mo mamakawa. Koe si yangi ko ia me I vai o ku ngau e tau behe ko kilo kalame taha. Tau behe u tau ngau aki ma oi pe ai e kilo kalame taha o e kawa ki he tau behe ko aki kane o ku iai hakahalani e nima. Pea koe tau behe koe hui a koe o ku rerei ko ia ki he sino. Ke hanga ko ia ki mo tolu ko ia o ku mamakawa. Pea ka paurewa e holo hifo ai me I vai o kalani pe wha. Pea ku taui rewa tau tolu ia ko kamata ke tau fua ai kawa. Pea ka toi holo hifo o kalani e tolu, toi tau fua nge ai kawa. Pea koe ne toi mālohi nge ia ai kawa. O hange rewa koe mau ki motua me he paintu ua. Loto mau pe ke mama kawa tau fua. Pea koe osi ko ia ai kumete. Kai beto ia oi ko nau api. Mangai nima ki mua, kai whaa ki mui. Koe anga ia mamakawa ai paintu ua. Heilo. Kai ge, o hanga rewa he sistemi koe nia o iloi ai anga ko ia o e palanisi ko ia o e vai. Ka pau maulalo o te tonu ke, o nau kau hono tala ke atamai, whi mau ke tala ke sino ki a koe pe moau. Ke inu ha me I vai. Le reange pe te inu ha ki fo I niu, hua I niu. Ka tau kautau reka, whakawaawaha pe ai vai ka ule rei ai hua I niu. He o kuyai, ai ngai vitamini, mo e mineral ko ia o kwhia mau e sino. Kono uhinga lahi e taimi ko ia he taulahi hono wa, na e taimi ko na e osia e ngai vai siri wa, ke kautau malu I whanua Amerika ko ia I he Pasifiki. Pea kairewa ke nau toi ilo pe e hanga whewhe. Ko mea pe nai hoko mai, nai whakaukau e toke tā koe ni ke ngau ek mua ai fo I niu ko ia o ku kei mata verivari. Kau kai ke fu mata verivari, mahalo o ku mei yofi ia ki he mata hihi loku. Pe koe waha ko ia mata verivari mo I mata hihi loku. Pea te rei pe o ku maa mumantu I koe tahia ngahi uhinga au tatonu ki tau ngā aki mao e pe ai wai niu, he koe vai au maataha ko ia he mamani i loto. Pea os whakatotoloi, mo whakapapau i whakasainisi. Pea iai e ngahi vitamini mo e minerals ai. Pea koe taimi koe ana e ngāo e aki koe ia ai niu koe ni ki e kia teki nau tolu koe kau sotia o e whanua Amerika na nau mo ui rewa. Pea i he taimi koe ia kou sio ai kono analyse ko he ngahi urepi kehe me kau sainisi kehe ai vaisiriwa pea mo e hohoa ai niu kai ke na fu kehe ki naua. Koe taha ia ngahi uhinga ho eiki mo haa matapure whatau mai ha ngahi u hohoa ai niu koe le rei taha ka pau o ku ofi au pito bege time koe u te inua e te ki fo i niu mataveri wari pe koe ki fo i niu hihiloku. Pea o hokore waia o aonga ki kau taureke reka whakawaawaha aki e nau inuku he koutui kua fo e kau taureke reka hano tuki aki nau tolu ai vai. Ai arewa koe sistemi koe niu ne hanga o whakafuafuai ai ae lahi koia o e vai koia ku i he kālava pea mo e vai koia i he lymphatic system. Pea ka pau rewa o ku ono noa e, ka e walu noa e, pea ku whainga rewa ki e whakataha ki naua ke na whakatau ono noa. Pe koe whakatau walu noa. O pehe hano ai koe ke palanisi koia ai mea koe ni. Heo ka pau he kai ke palanisi ai anga koia tuu koia ai re volo koia o e lymph. Ai ana o lawe ke ane nai o ku me hange hono lanu ko ha vai sioka. Pe ko ki motolo ko ia aku mo fa ma pe ai ngahi a pere India ngahi inu aki me ko lanu ia ofi au pito ki ai. Pe hanga rewa ka paurewa he ke palanisi ai re volo ko ia o vai pe mo lymph. Pe ka pau tau pehe da tōku si ai vai ko he lymph. Pe holo rewa ai vai ke alu ki he feitu ko ia me he ngai kālawa ko e pe ko circulatory system. Ko nau holo ko ki he pea hangi u tau fua ai toto ai mo manatu. Ko taimi ko u tau fua ai toto o ku ki whainga taha maki au pito ki he sino. Aia ko e uhinga lahi eni ka u tau reke reka u wha o atu ai pe ko ki mo tolu pe ko ne tau fua ko e toto pahangarewa he toki tā o atu hao blood fina. Uhike ki i whakasi isi i hifo, ai tau fua ko ia ai toto, uhike alohake ke re vologo u totonu ke iai. Ko e kapau te tau lava tato o talatano pe ahe taha ki mau inga ko ia o e palanisi o ngai vai pe me he secretary system, pe mo e lymph, pe me he lymphatic system. He una kehe, ai hona lanu mo hona whatongia. Kaike, ko hono konga ulua kia. Pea koe konga rewa hono wa, koe sisteme nia ukunehanga o toko nii ai sino, koe uhi, koe ngahi fluid ko toa pe e sino, po koe vai ko toa pe e sino, mo e toto, mo e lymph, i lymphatic system, ke nau takai ma upe. Me mihange nia koe mantu i kau tamare o, ka bau te nof pita fui feitu pe tahta hao pe kai haa ia, kai haa tia feitu koe, pe hangerewa ka lau e motu a mi tonga mamao. Kala i loa ia. Kaike, kono uhinga ia whi mao ai pe ke takai mao ai pe ai ngahi u fluid, pe koe vai, pe koe toto, pe koe lymph e sino o e tangata. He koe nau tuu mao be, ho eiki mo hama tāpule, koe whai whanonga atu ia ki he mama kahau. Koe kawe nia ha palo parema lahi aia o ku kapau te mohanga peo whatonga e ki mo tolu kai o vale pe ia whatonga i mahalo ko kapau kai ke lahi ho lue ki whamaisino pe ke mau mea tokoni me he tau kape, talo, kumala, manioke ko e lai lu, lai pere kawai ai longo uha mo whaiha ki lue pa avare pe te ongo i te mo moko pe ai va e ia. Neongo e ne afu ngia ai fu aho ko ia. Ka oku mo moko ai va e kono uhi ngā ho eiki mo hea matapure he ukai ke palanisi. Ai ngā ue ko ia secretary system ai u takai ai ai toto. Pe ukai ke palanisi pe moe lahi ko ia o e lymph. Ai huhua ko ia oku ihe lymphatic system. Pe ko e ne tuu ko ia. Ko kamata ke momoko teilo mai ai vai. Tuu ki olunga whaha ki lue lue ki hopo hopo. Pe haa beha o mea sayang mai pe ai lue lue. Te ki lue takai halo pe. Ka pau koe lue lue whahe aho kotoa pe. Kai ki kau ai sa pate. Pe hanga rewa he sino whamalohi. Ke takai ma o pe ai mea. Mantu i koe uhinga ene takai. Ke tuwha atu ai ngahi me arerei ko iena ke mau mea tokoni me iai. Pea o mai rewa ai ngahi u waste me ngahi konga ke kotoa pe ai sino. Ke ave wai ngahi mea ku recycle, pe wai ngahi mea u totoni ke ave atuia. Ki tua i ngahi whaunga hanga maheni, pea kou kore pe ke u hufanga i he talamalu e whanua. Aia o ku mo mea o ku ui ko e tuu ofi, mo e tuu mamao. Koe anga ia o he lymphatic system. Kaike, i he ngahi whakatotolo katoa pe mo i ngahi clinical studies o ku nauhanga whakato ngai ho eiki mo i haamata pure. I he aho kotoa pe o kuhanga ho sino o pamu ai whoirita e wanoa o i mea koia gui koe plasma. Ene takai holo koia i he sino. O hange koia na akulawe ki ai, ki mua. Ko hige tuwha atu. Ai ngahi mea re rei ko toa pēna ke mau mea takoni mea ai. Pe o mai mga mea ko ia o ku waste. Hange koe ni. I he taupehepe ko kai hoa tā. Ko ki fo i koe ki haka manio ke engenga. Ai beha mo ki i lai pere. O atu ke ai mo ki me i pulu. Fo i oni. Kau ki ai fo i oni tonga. Pahu ki ai fo i niu ne vau o lolo i aki. Ko i ngahi elemeniti pe mo ngahi iwi wha mo ui ko toa pe o ngahi mea tokoni ko ia. Ko hanga he sino o. Ko ne au ko ia ke feitu pe tuwha rewa he sino. Tuwha he sino whatatau ki ngā aue e sino. O kai ke pehe ia ke tuwha tatau ai konga ke ko toa pe kai. Mo whakatonga i koe ata mai lahi mau peho no tuwha ki ai. Pea moe ngahi konga koia e sino wha ake lue moe rere. Pea moe mafu foki mo whatonga i. Koe talu koia e ne tā koia i manawa i he tau ngahi wha e fita. Ke teki mo tolu ngahi wha e. Koe katoa ki mo tolu ton ke ui ki mo tolu. Koe wha e fita. Koe talu koia ai tā koia e ki mafu mi manawa. Koe ne toki tukupe. Pe te huat blewa ki he mama kahau. Pea mo manatu i whaawahe Dr. Kingilangi, koe pamu o kua. O laki pamu aia koe mafu ia. Koe pamu ko honoa ai vae, ai taimi o te lue ai. Ne hanga rewa, whawhiwanaki rewa ai hanga he lymphatic system, whai ai, pea moe secretary system, uhike palanisi, mo manatu i palanisi, ai anga koia e tuu koia ai vai. Pea tuwha atu rewa ai ngai mea rerei, pea o mai ngai mea koia kui kai ki rerei, o ave ki ngai konga ke kehe o sino, whima au ke tua tu ki tua. Mo haa whatonga i koe aha kotoa pe, koe fo i rita ia e wanoa. I he sino, koe ave atu e si o mau mea tokoni ane nai, pea koe mo tolu koe teu iha mo ki mea tokoni. Ka bade mo manatu ki hanga e vahe koe ni, ai aonga ke tau mau mea tokoni, me ngai mea tokoni, le rei, mo whakawha ofa, whatu mo le rei ki he sino. Aia kai fo irita ia e wanoa, i he aho kotoa pe ene takai ana. Manatu, ka tuu ai takai koe ni, pe ki tuai ai takai koe ni, hange u ki taitaimi. Wai pe kau tama o nau whae mea koe taitaimi. Pea kamata rewa ki te ongo i hange o ku mokosia e wae, kai hiri ko ia te au tupu atua ia. Ko o ngma upe ongo ko ia, pera pau kai te ke lava o tuu ki o lunga pea ke mea atu whaha lua i tua. Pea ke tangutu pe, whakaloloa pe ho wae mo tātā pe wae. Uhi ke ngau e mau pe. Hanga rewa he e muscles ia o pulu, a lymphatic system o na whetoni aki ai pe mo e secretary system. Alu pe taimi pia maa whana mai ho wae. Pea kapau wanga ofa hohoa, pea fota atu ai wae. Kono taha ia o ngai benefiti, maalunga taha o mea ko ia kui ko e fota. Ko uhi ko lymphatic system. Mantu i ko system nia o kunofo ia i tua. Ko e no lahi taha o ki nau tolu. Pea ko e benefit ma o pe ia fota ko ia e ka ureka, pe ko e hoa, anga ofa e hoa ka pau ke anga rei ke hoa, fota ho vae, ko e uhi ke o te o ngoi o ku mokosia e vae. Pea kai ko uhinga e mokosia e vae ke hua ko e tangata e ki o alo ewa. Ki takatakai halo pe i api, whakasisia te ki ngau e ke tataaki, pea whaia te pui ai hoa, ka toi maa whanange aho vae. Kai ke tau hoko atu ki he, ke ngahi ukonga ke he o lymphatic system. Aia ko e whahinga system yeni o ku iai e ngahi umea koe ni. Ko e kapau ku foi cell e taha. Ui pe ia ko e cell. Pera pau rewa ko e ngahi cell e tau pehepe o ku nima mano. Pea ku ui rewa ia ko e tissues. Pea iahi rewa mo e vessels, mo ngahi o kani ke heke hange ko e mafu, ko fuua, maa. Ate piri, ko e ate, mo ngahi ukonga ke heke o e sino. Aia rewa o ku hanga rewa he e system ko ni, ko loto ki wa o ki he konga ko ia, mo hanga whatonga, pea u hanga highlight e tuheni i he lana pulu. Hanga he system ko ia ko lymphatic system. O ne toni i ho no. He ulawa he sino ia o tala ai ngahi u cells ko ia o ku normal, mo cells ko ia o i kaike normal. Pea wanga whewheha no tala, he ko ngai cells ko ia o ku abnormal. Ko e te sio ko ia i he microscope o kuai, hono whanki i konga o naia o ku asi. Tau pepe ko e wheke o ku kawewalupe. Ko e normalo ia ai wheke. O warebe ke mao ko ia he wheke kawe tātolu, pe ke lere ke wawe au pito. He whatu tama ke wheke ko ia. Mahina mai rewa ko e wheke ia o ku abnormal. I he anga ko ia o e sino, o ku iai maupe ko te sio maupe ki ha fo i seong, i he microscope u te lava tala a seo ko normalo, me seo ko ia o ku i kaike normalo, pe ko abnormal. Pa paurewa te mai ho whakaukau ki ai, o ku hamore maupe a seo ko ia o ku normalo, ko e seo ko ia o kaike normalo pete ia. Aia ko e konga e hono ulua. Konga hono ua, aia rewa o ku iai ai whanki isiemu, pe ko e virus, pe ko e whankasi. Pe ko e bacteria o ku nau hau nau tolu ki hange u nau hola mai ki he lymphatic system. Kono uhinga lahi e nau holo ki he lymphatic system, he wae taimi lahi kai ke fuloko tolahi ai kau polisi, ko ia o e sino. Hola nau tolu ki ai e nofo ai, o tai taimi pe ai, ka nau toi hu mai pe ki loto ki he secondary system. Se ke angai maari e o i ngahi bacteria, maari e o i ngahi fungus, maari e o i ngahi virus ko ni hange ko i COVID tahiwa, whakatupfo ki a e virus ko ia ko i SARS-CoV-2, pe iai mo i ngahi u variant ke kehe ai. O ku mahu inga au pito ho eiki mo e haamata apure, a hono mahinoi o i ulunganga ko ia o lymphatic system. Pea o ku kawat ki ai mo i kansa. Mo whatonga i whake ulawe ane nei, hangi kansa ha wheke. E taha ono ngai ulunganga lahi. Pea hola ai kansa, koe kansa o nau nofa ma pea wheitu. Pea koe lahi pe nau whakapupunga ai, pea hola atu hasel, pea ku ilo i fokia uai kau polisi i secondary system. Pua halanga toto. Nau ki hola rewa nau tō ki halai taha, aia ka lymphatic system ia. Koe anga ia, oi ngawe aki he kansa ai lymphatic system. Ko ki motolu ko ia i Amerikani. O kui ai mau pe ai highway, pe koe freeway. Mahalo ki motolu pe mi Australia, ka maa whaka nusila. Mahalo o kui koe motorway. Pe i Amerikani, o kui ai mau pe ai hala ia he turiki. Koe taimi ko ia o ku wai ha whainga whatu tāmaki i he freeway. Poloka ko ia pe hou mai rewa e ngai umea re i he hala ko ia. Pe he tofu pe a hono whai he kansa e whainga paloparema koe ni, koe kansa. Alati poko sia tuka hakau polisi i he sino, ke nau tau i koe ki nau tolu, hola nau tolu ke lymphatic system. O nau nofo ai. Nau nofo pe ai ka o rewa ke nau hanga o nau toko lahi, pe nau toi huu mai pe ki he secondary system aia o kui ai e toto. O nau mafola ai. Oku iai pe e taiminihi o nau mafola i he lymphatic system. Mo mantu i whuka lymphatic system ia o ke loko lahi ai hangahi mau mea tokoni ia. Kono uhinga lahi au kai nau whaalata koe ki ai. Koe ki toi whakataimi me, hangi ha kau tau toi ko ia kau terrorist nofo pe ai, nau regroup ai, pa nau toi huu mai pe ke wheitu na nau iai koe ki mua o alu ke ngai wheitu o whaia e nau mau. Koe taha nia o ngahi uni mea o hoko i he lymphatic system. Pea koe system whukeni e konga whaka osi, o kuiai ngahi mea ko ia koe white blood cells. Koe ni ihia o kau sotia. O ku nau iai, pea koe nau toki huu mai koe ki tu a o nau kamata rewa ke hoko koe sotia. Ai au tau pehepe tau tolu koe kau sotia, pea uai mea whana ka koe ki ha mahafu iai. Pea koe taimi koe una huu mai ki tu a kakato nau teunga, pea ai moe mahafu e nau mea whana, pea nau whai rewa he mau ko ia au tau. Mou mea i koe kansa, pea ku whakatu tāmaki ke sino. Sai, koe hangi koe ia koe lawe ane nai mahalo tatonu ke tau hiket miheni, ka koe uhinga ko loto ke kawai e ni, he koe ni ihi whukeni o ngahi u mea o kuhau ki he lymphatic system. Koe taimi koe ula hei tau kai e ngahi mea ngako. Pea moe ngahi u proteins koe ia hange koe kai ha te whukonga pulu. Taimi koe au mau mea takonia i me he CP. O kulahi ange ngako i he protein i he CP. Pea maharie ayanga e tau wheao mo tau kaunga api i tonga eiki. Koe konga o CP u kai ke nau kai o mai e ka tau tolu. Ka nau mau mea takoni ki nau tolu me ngai konga le rei koe o CP. Kaike, koe taimi koe o hau ai ai ngahi ngako pea moe proteins. O nao mai rewe ki heni pa uhanga rewa he system ko ni o kaike ngata peho no tufa ki nau tolu ke ngai wheitu ufi mao koe ke nau oki ai. Ka nau te hanga o sivi pe ku filter ki nau tolu. Pea toe ne mau ko ia pa toe whakafoki pe ki nau tolu ki he halanga totoa pe ko circulatory system. Mo whakatonga e ni ngawe. Kaike ngata peho no tufa ka nau te hanga o sivi pe ko filter mo mana tui ai anga e tau ngawe aki neu tupu hake. Nai taime nihi wha manua ai mahoa. Kore pegi hufanga e whakatapu. Pe nai ma pegi mea sivi, koe talame ma pegi whine eki alo o sivi mahoa a. Pe koe te sivi koe am lava whai mea e ono pe whiha. To ate whanki i mea koe ia pe me mahoa a. Kai lava rewa o ai haki tōpai. Pe ko haki lau lau. Kaike, koe tahaya ngai ulunganga o system ko ni kono sivi. Ai mea katoa pe ave ke ngai feitu utoton ke ave ki ai pe sivi pe toi whakafoki lewa. Mahina mai lewe ko maa mo mau. Ko ia ngai ngau e ai system. Hoik mai hamta pule ki I fuoloa ai vahe tu mo ke tu ata ki fo I tu akeni. Pe tau foki mai ma tau fo I fasi. Pe tau hoko atu. Oa na mo tuange tau poloklama ka mo mea mai pe hena. Pe mo eiki pe kai share te tau poloklama. Malo.
United Kingdom of Foa. Pe tau mua ngā aue ke whakaivia ai ngā his whamili e wāhe ngā Foa. I tau lele iange ai tō ngā whakaako. O ui haisi ni hange koe tauhi ngā hi apolo e maa. O ngā whaekonomika o hange koe whakatupulaki e mau anga ngā aue. O aki ngā aue I whalehanga. Kanga, tai. O mauto e rau kawe I foki ai mahu inga ke iai hapalani ngā aue I hoko koe whalawa anga I whanonga anga oi mo ui. E tau mo mataha, piki hama kai vai manawa. Pātolo aki whakalakalaka ke tūloa e ke kai mo inu ai tau tangata oi wahinga fua. O mautu o pā ke whai o mautu ko ingata e le lei whalu fua a koe moa o tangata I whanua o fua. Pāpāpātu United Kingdom of Fua.
I kai, koe vai nonu ia e tau whangakui o katoa ia ono aho mo no pōni, pe whakasai nisa ahono ngā hui, te e kuinu ngō fua ahono anga, pe taha awhe nimangi au ahono mamana, seuke, pe toi whakaatu I foki mo hono kakala. He ko hono ao ngā ko tāki tahi, pe tāki uta, no ngā ia suka, ngā koe toto, mo toto maolunga, saiki ai arthritis, kauti, pe moe kahi. Pe whakatau pasi ai mafte fua, ata mai, moe iwi lahi. Tai whanaahi ai mo uilelei he ko hono tawi ia. He koe nonu, nai tori ia me Hawaii, Tahiti, Haamoa, pe amo Tonga, pe a kuone mahola I Europe, Asia, pe amo Amerika lahi. Koe nukuhiwa ia pe amo hono ngahi ao ngā, ka rewa, ke otaha o nukuhiwa, ki he ono walua, ni ma ono wha, fitu nono ataha. Ono walua, ni ma ono wha, fitu nono ataha.
Akau ko hota whanua, whakatapui, koe motu o tonga. Ate molope, poesia, tota lope, na Tau aku e kere sila mea I koku lau mai Angera whau e teni taputou iki ono mei Koe mata vai mo uina e lau e tau sāme Amsia ai manukuna o kune si tata I mohu One mari loto e sikola sipina aneiku Si ene tape kukua o pasi ki e lau o natu Leo ko o whare area tau whakamau me tau kua Taka wipi o homa te te wha Tori katala he katala I loa Whakakari koe mapa Fio he ilala O fulani aki Ahono siare ta wha Taka I ono lolo ala pasika Kaweta paki ono tirisikala Isa koe si weri o Aotearoa Fie lau e koe hopo hata e la a Whanunai kakala o mausahea no masima Akau ala manongi e apikolo tawa Ai koe hose matalahe o tumoku mamaka E koe tori ai kona tamai ki o homa tutu wha Isa e nalo a wesi api koi a hona E teu I ai pena e saini o nohi moa Toku ana ake I ai kake api seni me I loto a Nonga amu ahe na tuku o tuki e umata Langa noa e mana tuki e api ko patata ani Maire a te horo pe mo isi a tōtoroke Nanivi ai ono e a whanala e po I one one Hau whano e mamau mo I e kore mo e kore Ki tā university kosi o tona pahari oe Tau afu e kere sila me ai hoku lau mai e Ange hapau I teni tafutou niki ono mei Koe mata vai mo uina e lau e tau sāme Amsia ai manukuna o kune si utaka I mohu One mari loto e sikola sipina aneiku Si ene tape kukua o pasi ki e lao o natu Leo ko o whare area ko whakamau me I tau kua E tātou wipi o home te te wha Tori katala he katala I loa Langa kai mo e papa Fio me I lana O fumani api Ahono siare te wha Kakai ono loro ala pasita Kaweta paki ono kuisikala Isa koe si weri o Aotearoa Fie lau e koe hopo hata e la a E tato wipi o homa te te wha Tori kakala he kakala I loa Langa kai moe mapa Fio me ilana O fumani aki Ahono siare ta wha Kakai ono lolo ala pasita Kaweta paki ono kuisitala Isa koe si weri o Aotearoa Fie lau e koe hopo ana e la a Fie lau e koe hopo ana e la a Fie lau e koe hopo ana e la a
Whamalo pito hoi ki mo e hamata pūreha mō tūtaimika mō mea mai ki he pāinga o he wāke tariwhalau I he aho whakakoloa koe ni. Pea kore at pē ki he polisi koe toko taha koe na ko Louis Vincent. Ka uia whae e ne tua ki he taimi. Live koe ia polo kalama pea utoni ke tua tiki tua. Pea ui mai hakau tāta me tatafa ki tāhe whae ati ke nofo pē tua. Malo. O whātuka koe polisi pia malo I ngā lahi pia mihena. Koe hoko atu ai pōtala noa ho I ki mui hāmata pūre ko tui koe ngahi wheu ina I tuku mai koe he ahoni kono tari en. Koe hā a lymphatic system pe ko tau tala noa ki ai pia e toi vahe e ngahi usleiti hoko mai e toi mahinoange Ka koe ngahi konga eni o e sino aia o ku whakakalasi ia o ku nau kau kotoa ke he lymphatic system. Kono ulaki koe lymph nodes. Pe ko hono ui whakatonga, pe ko haina ne hanga o whai FOE translation ko ia, aia o ku mau aki koe lama. Lama. Aia koe konga ia o lymphatic system. Mo hao whakatonga i, ko tuika ne ospe ni pia mahino ngofua au pito ai lymphatic system, ngai konga o lymphatic system. Aia koe lama, koe tahaia o ngai konga ko ia o lymphatic system, koe appendix, koe tahaia ngai konga o lymphatic system. Pia mo manatu i koe taimi ko ia o whaapae appendix hata, koe langa tuka koha langa. O hi ko wa umai whangi bacteria koe loto kamata ki nau whanonga ki nau toruia ki he toenga o lymphatic system pia moe secretory system. Neongo koe kongaia o lymphatic system ho eki moe haamata pure. Ka kohono api nofo a ngā koe whai konga peko e. Koe ke te tāria ke te alu ka te whaitu ke. Ka ke te whema auia ke te alo ewe halo ka whaitu ke. Mo whahato e tala api angai whitu ke. Koe api pegoena o angi koe e sihova koe ki ai a whai konga koe. Mo tolu koe au mo mea mai i he YouTube pe koe Facebooka. Koe konga pe utaton koe ke nau iai. Koe nau mawahe pe mi ai ku nau kaure na tau i he whakakina. Aia koe konga ia hono ua. Koe konga rewa hono tolu, mahalo te peke au ki ai ngai whakaukau tolahi. Koe bone marrow. Mo whatonga i mau pe ke konga koia i loto koia o e hui, koe tahaia ngai konga o lymphatic system. Aia ku whau me ai ngai u konga kehe o e toto, toko i mai rewa me ai ke he halalahi koia o e lymph system, pe koe lymphatic system, pe a pasi mai rewa me ai ki halanga toto, pe koe secretory system. Mo whatonga ai anga nga awe, manatu i koe tahea ngai whatongia ke palanisi. Pe to iai mo i kausotia. Me miko ngai whei tueni, au koe kausotia koe au te kange nau poto i he tau. Koe nau toki poto i he tau, taim koe nau matua tua ai pe nau hopo pe he lymphatic system ki he secretory system. Ai koe konga i hono tolu. Koe konga rewa hono whaa, koe ngai whei tu ia o kui ai mapu koe tonsils ia hangi koe ia o mo mea ki ai. O kui ai ai taimilahi. O kui ai ngai whanau, o kou lawe i heni whanau papalangi. Koe lahi koe ia ai ngai u infection, pe awe rewa ia o to'o rewa ai tonsils. Mo manatu i koe paloparema pe ai appendix, pe au lava pe ia o to'o. Koe konga lahi eni o e tonsils eni, koe konga hono whaa ia o lymphatic system. Pea o koe ai au pito a ene kapaude moha whakatonga e konga ko ia, pea moe notes, he koe konga ia o kua maanga maheni kia ia toke tā. Kapaude mo whakatonga i mau pe wha kore atu e toke tā, ke whakamanga hongu tū, pe wea nau ki hangia whanki mea koe mi he top C koe na tau wanga maheni kia i mi tonga. Ai ki mea koe si ke nau sio ki he tonsils, he koe tonsils ko ia o ku normalo o ku iki pe, koe ne abnormal pe ko wholahi au pito pe a lanu kulokula. Koe hau ia ai kulokula moe fufula. Mahino mai rewa ke toki tā o koe ai paloparema i ha lymphatic system, o koe ai ha bacteria, iai pe koa fungus, pe koa virus. Mo manatu i koe tahania ngai konga o ku sivi ma o pehe toki tā, he taim koe o ku ke mea toi ke toki tā. Koe paloparema lahi taha koe o kapau te whesio ke he anga ko ia ai whakatupulangi ko ia ai tonsils. Kai ke u mau whalerei pe koe hao nui whakatonga ia. O ku pupula ia o wholahianga ia i he normalo. Pea ku mahina mai rewa e whaingata ai taimi ko ia u ke mau mea tokono ai. Mea tokoni ai pea follow ko ia ki loto. Ko le pe hufanga whatapu. Pea u adlewa hau antibiotic, puka hapea whenga mea au ku hoko ki ai. Ai koe konga hano wha, konga lewa no ni ma, koe taha ia o ngahi mea o kui koe famous. O ku ni ihi o ngahi kau so tia o ku whau ia heni. Pea uhangi ha ui he kau papalangi koe butterfly. E hanga koe nau nofu koe loto moha whatonga e taimi kou ke mea atoi ke toke tā. Kai ke ngata pehe tāti ke whakamanga sio ke tonsils ma ngai mea. Pea kamata hano fota ai konga koe. Kau ai pe moe mo ngā. Kore pe hu whangai whakatapu. He ka taimi u abnormal ai o ku whakafofo lahi. Pea whaingataa ai wholo ko ia ai whawai. Pea taimi ke me tokoni ai pea mamahi. Ai anga ko e tuu ko ia e tonsils. Pea ko e paloparema ki e famous. Ko e taimi ko ia o ku inflame pea kulo kulai mo fufula mo popula. Pea si lewa kautau o ku whau pea meiai. Me me una hanga na tolu o toka ngai ai thyroid health. Mantu, koe thyroid ka uia ha konga pere ngese sino he tokoni ki hono whakarere ia e hanga ngau e ngai kemikare ko ia o sino. Koe ne mo whakatonga i koe taimpe koe e paloparema ai thyroid hange ko ia koe ngahi u paloparema ki mua koe uhi kua fufula ai thyroid tau te whito ki he famous. Moha whatonga a hingoa, famous thyroid. Pea koe taimi ka pau kai te mau ai ngahi u minerals ko utaton ke mau he sino. Pe koe ngahi vitamini ko ia utaton ke mau he sino. Hange koe vitamin C. E ngahi utalanoa ko ia ki mua. Hoko rewa ki ai koe konga ko ia hono no kui koe spleen. Pea o ka pau kua ha taha heni o kune mea i ai rea tonga mo oni ki he anga koe tonsils, pe koe famous, pe koe spleen, pe ke ka taki o te lawa peo text mai ke waunoa taha tau taha noa wha noa o no noa, pe koe message mai i he messenger, asipea i awhapang, koe hiki hanga o ilo i ahano ui whakatonga ko ia. Aia koe konga hono no pe koe konga whaka osi hau eki moe haamata pure ai taha o ngai konga o kui koe paias pets. Koe konga ia o e small intestine ko kore pe ngai pe a rea whakapapalangi he ukai ke fuongo le rei a rea whakatonga i hanga ko ia hono ai. Koe hui ku wheholufi e nofo mo o mea mai pe moe whanongo. Ko e tahaia ngai konga o e kat, o kune pe koe kete, o kune hanga, o koe wheitu uia, o koe mea tokoni ko tau pe u tau kai, vai ko tau pe u tau kai, koe taimia o mai ai pia me he small intestine ki he ngai konga ko ia o sino ke tufa, ki he lymphatic system pe alo atu foki pe moe secretory system. Koe taimi au alu ke ngai wheitu ke kehe o sino. Koe ai ho eki moe haamata puli ko toi whanongo pe ke he lymphatic system pe mahino pe whakatawange pe mahino ki te koe oku konga ke he e fitu. Aia koe lama, koe appendix, koe bone marrow, konga koe ai loto koe ai o ngai hui, kau ki ai moe tonsils, kau ki ai moe thymus, spleen, pia kau ki ai pia moe konga koia o e small intestine o kui koe bias patch. Pia mohanga rewa whakatonga i heni ai paloparema koe ni, he uku lahi au pito hono ngawe aki he kansa ai ngahi ukonga ke koe ni o sino. Sai ka tau lue at pe, koe a ngaina, o e te sio ko ia ki he notes pe koe lama. Ka pade moha whakatongai. Koe tuu ko ia ai lama. I he ngahi konga kehe ko toa pe sino e tangata. O koe ngahi whakatata nia ne i mua te kai ke update. Koe tau e nima ko hiriko update tau kua u ai lama ke atamai. Aia me mohanga whakatonga i ngahi notes koe lama i ngai whei tuu kehe o i ngahi konga kehe sino ko ia o e tangata. E rewa toi whampe toi māmangi a o ilo i he tainimi pēr mō whātonga i koe uhinga lahe ni koe ka pau hataha mau he kahi. Pēr ku nau whapehena tau na hange kuongo e ku he mā o wale pe ku hange ia o ku totolo i ke matau. Kono uhinga ni koe ke ongo i pehe ai. Uhi he koe whanki i lama ko toa pē pēr o wale pe ku te lava o huat mantu koe nau circulate mau pe ke alu mau pe ai vai mo ngahi ukonga kehe pe hangere vai o ku alu me he ma ke matau po ke matau ke he ma pe apau na e o longa he ve whaafine pe a hoare pe hangere o totolo i foia ki lalo ki he tui mo e ala ngā ko le pe hufanga e whatapu kono uhinga he ku where ai lama i ngai konga kehe i sino ko ia o e tangata. Pea ka pau e poloka hafo i lama he ho eki mo e hamata apure. Te uato e whatata ko ni ko uhi ko e mea na aku sio tonu ai i he kukui te vita to angutu ai mea kui ko e vee fua. Kono uhinga o he vee fua ho eki mo e hamata apure. Kai ke ngata pe i he whainga paloparema ki he siemu ko ia o kunofo i he lama. Ka kuhange ha fo i pula. Ko taim pe ko ia ke mantu e whaifi ko ia o e fo i pula. Pea pau ti hanga puka i loto. Pea alu pe ta wha ki o lunga o alu pe ia o tupu o to e wholahi angeia. Pea kono uhinga ia alu atu ai whangi i siemu o nofo ai. Pea nau tala api ki nau tolu ai. Pea alu pe taimi pea tupu le whanua ai tupu ko ia ai vae. Ai au tau i whakatonga ko e vee fua. O ku ui whakapapālangia he kautauta ko e elephantitis. Hangeha vae ko ia o elefanite. Ko e uhinga lahe ni whakatauta whaalatu ki ka paurewa te ke alu o ki he tauta ki whahasivi. O ku nau whaawhinga ke nau talamai ke nau wala ki he whaafine. Pe ko e konga ki mu, pe konga ki mu e sino. Ka nau whinga ke whaha ko ne momeniti pe e ne hange u whakawhewheka ko ia ai lama. O kai peke te whakawhewheka ai lama hato i uhinga ke he ulaki. O ku meimi, o ku nau hau na taula hange i hafo i tangai mataka pe taha. I loto ai bacteria, i loto ai lahi ai ngako, pea i loto ai cholesterol, lahi bacteria pea to e kanoni aki, ai lahi ko ia o e suka. Pea koe nau hau ko ia o nofo i he fo i lama, pea hange unau i ngaki e nā tolo ngai siemu ke nau mea mai, ke hau e ngai siemu ia o nau tala api ai ki nau tolo. Koe palo pare mai. Aia koe vee fua, koe mahaki ia whakatupu i he siemu, kai wesia ai ai lymphatic system. Aia utotoni ke ui pe koe kahi. Kaike, ka pau te mō mea te pe ke anga e tuu ko ia, hange ko ia na ulawe ka ni nai, ko e anga ne tuu ai veins, pe moe artery, artery moe veins, man tuu i koe una hanga o mai pe, koe taimi koe o ku pehe ai, aia koe ne o mai koe toto ulahi ai ai oxygen ai pe koe toto si e oxygen ai pe ulahi ai carbon dioxide. Koe whatongia rewa a lymphatic system manatui, koe ne whakapalanisi ai anga koe e tuu ai fluid. Pau ke palanisi ma upe, ai anga se ni ngā ue heni. Koe konga e ko loto ke vahe i he slaiti koe ni. Ke whātonga i rewa e ne tuu ko ia ai lymphatic system o ku drain ai konga kotoa peki ai. Pea whakapalanisi ai, ke palanisi, he kai ke palanisi e hoko rewa ai palopare ma. Sai, pea ka pau rewa te mō me atu ki he whakatātaha koe ni, o ku hā mahino mai ai, ai ka pau te alatu ha microscope o toi sio, o toi ofiang e te mō whātonga ai anga ko ia to tolo a lymphatic system pea moe lama ai a koe ngai konga e pea ka paurewa i ai ha konga o ku whewheka I e lama, mahina mai rewa ai ngahi mega lahi ai suka, lahi ngako, toi kau ki ai mo e high cholesterol, boe high blood pressure, o nau kau, kapau, e kai ke toka ngai rei. Pe ute ai ngahi usia mo kehe ia au nau nofo ai, pea o ku kawat ki ai mo e hola ko ia ngai kansaya ni o nofo he whanki I lama. He nau mantu I fuko e kansaya o nau tupu le whanua ki nau tolu. Kai ke nau toi sikiriwi ki nau tolu, pea o kui kai ke nau toi whahanau vacation, nau hange pe ia o ku nau whakatolahe pe ki nau tolu ia he mo miniti sekoni, miniti hoa, mo e aho, mo e mahina, mo e tau. Koe palo pare mai pe kamata rewa, koe ne tupu koe o lahi koe ia pe whakawhewheka rewa ai lama. Sai pege tau hokot miai koe ki taimi no pe ke mahalo se mahino ngofua pe nia ka tau hokot mua koe mahalo koe konga tatau pe na ia ka o koe toi ki I whakaatad pege toi ki mahino nge mea ka ane nai aia koe oxyseni ku hauhe he artery aia ku lan kula maupe pea lan pulu maupe ngai mea e whakatata koe veins ia aia ku lahi ngai ai carbon dioxide ia ma tu I whe maupe he mafu atamai mga I konga ke hoi sino ke oange maupe ene mea kai lerei pea toa toi ngai waste pea mo whatonga e hanga ko ia ai hua tu ki ai lymphatic system koe fo ilama ne taha ai a ku drain katoa ai ke whakapala nisi ai mo hau whatonga ngai ngawe ma onga o ku whai e lymphatic system pea koe konga en hono ulake lymphatic system ai lama pa de tau hokat miai koe nau whi mau ke saua tue ni he kono uhingaen pa de mohanga whatonga e ngai konga ke o e lama pe kono uhinga o whaafama o e pe tokita he koe ilalo he I he kia ko kore pe ke ufanga whatapu o kuiai ai whaimasi ai mo mantu I koe konga whukia o e lymphatic system koe konga ula kien ka pa o ku aia koe la maia ka pa o ku aha puke poha mea ka ulerei pe a la maia ngai fitu keke pe mahin mai rewa o keke nau hola o toi I he lymphatic system toanga pe ha whainga o kani kehe ia ku nau toi ki nau tolu ki ai. Pea koe taha ni o ngai whakatotolo whakamui mui taha, ke mea I ho eki mo e hamata pure, o ku iai mo lymphatic system I he atamai. I he ngai tau ki mua, mo mana tui, koe kahi koe whainga mahakia o lymphatic system, I lo I he tau whangakui I he senturi, I laulau I senturi. Toki I lo I he kaupālangi ki muini mai. Ka koe mea au maari I he tau e hongo fulu, tau e nima kua hiri. Koe anga ni o e ngahi tui whakasani si, nau pehe o ngata pe a lymphatic system hen, pia moe lama I he konga ko ia. Koe gea o ki olunga ki he. Pia nau toki whakatonga I ki muini mai, ta koe o kua o pe a lama pia mo lymphatic system ki he fo I atamai. Pea koe taimi koe te hangai o sio I a microscope, koe hangai nai mea mo whatonga I koe whanki la mai. Whao ki tau tolu he o tua, o si mau pe a ngahi u system ke nau hanga o toka ngai ki tau tolu, ki tau mo uilerei, tuku mai mo e lao ki tau mo uilerei mo whahaki whamau sino, whetoko ni aki. Koe mea ane o mahari e ho eki mo e hamata apure. Koe kakai sio ki ta, o whaalahi mau pēr ngai paloparema whakaatamai a nau tolu. E ngai whakatolo whakasainisi. Kakai koe o ku ofa, whaakataki, mo whoaki, koe taimingo te sue ke lymphatic system, o ku le rei au pito. Mo manatu I koe whao e system koe nihe o tua. Pea ku whaitariha pe o tua I he ne mea pea ana. Kaike, koe mahino mo o nieni, ai anga ko ia ngawe a sino ko ha mahino mai. Tau pene nima ko hiri. Kaige. O ku kapau rewa, o ku ai rewa ku wai ngai kahi kehe. I he anga o i tuu ko ia e whai to o whakatonga. Ka paurewa o hoko hanga i ngangau e ulu ko hana e whai ngakahi ko ia. Kaike, koe uhinga ku fie vahe ai e ni, pia ukaike fie mao e ke mou mea i kotoa, ka koe fie mao, ke mou sio ke hanga ko ia ai ngawe ai suka, pia mo e lymphatic system, pia wanga fe e nei ngawe. Koe mea ko uku mahino mai, koe lahian koe suka i e sino o tangatagu ni hanga ue sia a lymphatic system. Sai kai, ai arewa o ku mei o ku whakaawarisi. Koe toko ua 8 miliona Amerikani o ku mau ai suka type whika ua. Ai a ku lahi au pito ai suka i he toto. Pea ko ene lahi pehe koe uhinga whakeni, tahani ngai uhinga i ho mea ko ia ke toki tā. Whema e toki tā ke sevi, ai ngahi mea hangi koe A1C, HbA1C, whema o ke nau sio ke ngahi ukonga kehe o e halanga toto, koe uhi he kune wesia, ai lymphatic system, mohanga o manatui, koe taha o ni ngahi ngā o koe whakapalanisi ai circulatory system, pia mo lymphatic system. Pia whainga taa ke whakapalanisi e ni e taimi ko iau mao e suka, pia koe taha o mao he suka. Koe taha eni o ngahi uhinga, o ku whainga taa ai, ke treat ai ngahi wounds, ka pa o kua halavea, o e vae, pe koe konga o sino, hange o mei whaa palapalangia. Koe tahane ngahi uhinga ani. Ki tau hokat koe ki ai, ai rewa o ko ki nau tolu koe aku mao e taipe hono ua. Koe horisi koe o lymphatic system. Ka mata rewa e ke hangi koe o ku awa ai horisi. Kono ui mo onia, pe ku wha ui rewa koe pemapo, pe koe leaky. Awa e horisia pe huta vare pe ai lymph. Ai hangi ko ia o ku vai sioka. Koe mea ko tau peu koe ke ha mea koe huta vare ai. O ku toka ngai he sino, ai malu ko ia o sino. Pea i hene pehe ho iki mo i hamata apure fu mahu inga ki tau toko ni i tau ngai kainga, wha miri, mo ngai o whaanga ko ia o ku mao ki nau tolu he suka. Whakarerei e tau kai ka bau ha toa taha ki tau te hama upe he kai ha te T-bone steak. Toki whakarailahi ange aha o Vestapolo. Te whakarailahi o kai ki fo i konga komala. Konga kape. Lolo e pe fo i niu. O te lolo i aki ai mayonnaise pe toi hui aki pe moe whipped cream. Kauia ha fo i whakau kauia o kai ke fusai. Pea koia ho eiki mo hamata pule, koe taimi koia mao ai suka whika ula ki, koe suka whika ua, taipe hono ua, ko kamata rewa ke awa ai horisi koia o he lymphatic system. Pea palopare malahi rewa ai. E taha ngahi whakatotolo ki nau tolu na maunga au e whakataha, whikau aki mo e nonu, na nau sio ki he anga koia o lymphatic system. Ko lymphatic system o ki nau tolu koia o kei talavou, whawhiona ki a te ki nau tolu ku nau matua tauni manoa ki olunga na kehe au pito. Aia o ku pia koe anga peheni rewa ai whakatotolo. Whawhanga aki rewa koe ngai whakatotolo eni whaoia he ngai whanki kuma kore pe hufanga e whakatapu. He whaingo fua ke te hanga o insect ai ngai u kala koe na o lawi kei inoa. Pe e lanu pulu, pe koe lanu kula, ka ukai ke whae kula kuhiga na whito o aki e te ilo me circulatory system. Koe mea lai taha lanu pulu, lanu uri, ai pe kaua te kia i whae lanu ngā, ka ukai ke whae sai ngā. Pe koe lanu mata, i ngai taimi lahi. Pea koe nau sio koe ki he whakatotolo koe ni, e nau fia mo vahe mai ka mautolo e nau ngai ngau rei. Koe hange ku lawe nei, koe lymphatic system o ki nau tolu kei talavou. tō atu, maa, pia le rei ai holisi o lymphatic system. Koe aluko matua hange pe kai ke te kea hange koe toto maolunga mo lahi ai ngako te tānake kai mo lahi suka. Kamata rewa ke awa ai ngai holisi ko ia. Pia palopa rema. Koe mea maari koe whanki kumaa ko ia o nau motu ange. Osipe e nau inu pia mihe nonu. I ngai fo i taimi koe ni nai alu mahina taha. Mahina tolu, mahina ono pe tau e taha. Maha koe lahi o ngai umea ko ia vahe ia i ngai nusi pepa kehe. Whakasai nisi na e pulusi. Ka koe mea koe ni o kunau pehe. Alu hake rewa a lymphatic system o i ka whanki kumaa ko ia o ku matu o tua au pito. O hange pe ia ko lymphatic system o i kau talawo. Koe nonu ia ho eki mo haa mata apure. Koe lofa talamasania. Kaike, koe ko mi hoko ai oku keito e lahi pe e mea ke vahe. Ko pehe ke tuku atu ki fo i fasi heni, ka e o mai a eni, ke tau hokat ki ai, pe tau toki foki mai, ha taimi ke wike ka hau, pe ha taimi mawe mai pe ke hoko atu ai. Ko anga ia o he ngaue a lymphatic system, aia ko e mahamahagi ko tawa pehe lymphatic system, o kui ko ia he tonga, ko e kahi kagoloto ke u whaiha kore tokoni heni, ke teki mou tolu. Ko e ngahi kahi pēna ko lava o ilo i. Aia ko e kahi ngutupure, ko e kahi matan nyaki loma, kahi mui wha ere, kahi tākai niu, mo e kahi veke veka. Ka pau ku ke mea i hato e kahi yange. Katak whamone more o text mai ke wau noa taha tau taha noa wha noa o no noa. Pe ko e ngau ek mai ai messenger. Ke vahe mai ho poto mo ho ilo ke ulave ai ngahi u kahi koe ni o kui kai ke ulave i. Kaige, tuat ki fo i fasi hen, tuat peha ki fo i tuaki pe taha mo ki fo i fasi pe tau hoko atu. Malo.
Siva mai taimi Samoa.
Hoi ki mo ka inga tonga i kale. O kuke fie mauna i hao ki ha moa o iloa ko ie vai pe ie ini. Aua, ko ne pepe ini o kune whakamahino mai ai au iki ai kieni pe ko mate lalanga seuke. Hange ia na lalanga ka misini kako eni. Ko si nima amo pe ia si ngai fa e me ha moa. O mauhene sais ke ika ingata pe i au kako lahi o kie. Tā mai lewa ki hoko pe toi putu. Pe whakatau hao kie ke laulo tahai ho foi pere i kare. Fika telefoni, valu noa valu, whani mafitu ono wha hiva ono. Valu noa valu, whani mafitu ono wha hiva ono. Koe lo taki enterprise ia.
malave loto ia te kita Karulana o puha e sika mita
Whamalo pito hoi ki mo e hamata pule mo tuku taimiga mo mea mai ki he pāinga e wā ke tarifurau. I he whiawhi whakakoloko ni, whia ke taitarere heni a Annie o Tano. Annie, ka tak whamore more o introduce yourself if that's okay.
Malolele, ko ingoa ko Selueni Johansson O'Donnell. Ko nofo heni so reiki. Ta'ahine awa oto mo Ofa Johansson, and they live here in Utah as well with me. Ko tamai ko haume la paha, pa mo fae ko haume va tu'u, pa ko iai pene konga uiha.
Maria.
And a little bit of fahefa.
Malo pito Annie, ko hao hoi ngoa kakato o
Ko
Annie.
Selueni.
Oh.
Ke rawa pilo o ngoi e pulea.
Io, ka pai ai me bege te ki lea lahiange u whawhange.
Okay.
Io. Malo pito, malo pito Annie, koe kake u peau iau ke nofo California I Santiago. Na ke nofo Santiago?
Ia, na nofo pe Santiago, mahalo koe tau e walu. Na nofo moku my auntie Selueni tuifua.
Oh.
Fai se kau Selueni nofo I Santiago. Na nofo mo ia.
Okay. Koe niu ke soreiki pea saeni ke u ke uilo ke soreiki pea koe na u whawhi I foki a Tema Hankins pea kamata I he mahina ko osi hono wahe atu ko Tema hoik mo I hamata apure na mau ngawe whakataha ki he whatau e ki I parepare I Provo pea lahi o pito ngahi mea na wako mea Tema patama e Tema o koe I e toa taha tonga o ko poto rea whatonga whewhe ke ki hū mai I he ahoni pau whia o pito Annie. Ia malo o pito I ngawe lahi pe mi hena ka koe taumu ana e whai ke ai tokanga I whai ke ha wahe pe o pau te ke wahe mai ke ho tau kei ka pau te ke whie wahe mai ai hohalanga your educational experiences pe mo tau kei whikau aki pe mo e market loans mo ngahi umea pehe ko tui ko uhinga e wahe eni he ulahe kakai kunau nofu American ta o tolungo hulu whaanga hulu o kunau kei reni peki nau tolu pe te whatonga I ko nau reni o ku mamawhangia I he mortgage payment ka ku whia o pito ho o lama mai ke paenga I wā ke tarifolau pea ofa pe te ta tautou polo kalama heni uhio ke lava o rea le rei he tau rea whakatonga. Ka u whakafoka te taimi ka koe ka pau te ke wahe mai ai educational experience ke mau pea hoka tuai pe ki he mahu inga koe ka ha e te mea u whai o tonu ke te whai e kita e te tuunga whakapaanga pe koe mea whakapepa ke te lava qualify ki a whainga loan ke whare. Malo Annie.
Malo a pito afa ko whia being a part of this and ko poto pe lea whakatonga ka ku ke a little bit broken pe so ka pau ku sai pe ka ki lea whakatonga and a little bit of English.
Yep.
If that's okay with everyone, and I'll throw in my tongue in when I can find the words.
That's good.
But you can hear me okay?
Yeah, very good.
Okay. Malo apito. Yeah, so koe ta'u e ni e taha ni mau ko ngawe aki he mortgage industry. Now I was going to school for accounting, and I went to school in Metro State University in Denver after leaving here in Utah. And so what I found in accounting is a mortgage job, and I realized how much I loved mortgages, and that was back in 2008. And so it's been a long journey, and og mo'oni holea ogu fele kakai Polynesia I America ogu nauke reni. And what I found is my grandparents, when they migrated here, my grandparents go Manu Mapupua, and they came to America in the early 1970s. They bought homes, and so did their siblings, all of my great aunts and uncles. But somewhere along the line, the generations did not. So I don't know what happened, or maybe there was just not an understanding of how important it is to whakatau api in America, because the cost it just continues to rise. That when generations pass away, it's very hard to sustain a family if you don't own real estate. Meaning, if you kage ma'o api, what will happen to the rest of your children and their grandchildren. And so I'm very grateful for my grandparents and for you, Afa, and all of the other generations that have been able to accomplish buying real estate and buying a home and owning your home here in America. I think the number will koe uraki pare pare ma I he tau kakai koe is handling money, cash. We hold on to a lot of cash. Pea ka pau ku ke fie mau ke whakatau api, oku tapu he whakatau api aki he just cash by itself. Oku fie mau ho tiri ni ho paanga, ke nofo mau he panke I he mahina e ua, even if it's cash. So what the banks call that is they need your money to season for at least 2 months. And so that's the biggest, one of the biggest challenges that I see with our people. Since I moved back to Utah, I've helped many Tongan families, and I'm very grateful to help our people. And another big challenge is credit. Yeah, so because we deal so much with cash, we don't build credit at all. And so koe nofo heni Amerika, koe krediti, koe fika uluakia. Paanga is not even first, it's credit first. And then paanga. And so if we could keep that in mind and remember to start establishing credit. And you're probably wondering, how do I do that? Well, if we don't pay our bills, there's probably going to be collections on our account, and that's very normal with our people. We get the credit collectors calling us, bill collectors, mostly for medical bills and things like that. It's very important to handle those calls before it hits your credit. Because if it gets to a point, a lot of our people, we get to a point where we need a lot of credit repair. That we pay a credit company that I love to use. They're here in Utah, Koningoa Kona Fa'amoe, with the Fair Credit Firm. That they do a really good job with credit repair. If anyone needs credit repair.
Oku ke provide service ko ia pe oku ke tō tahakona na ke lau ki ai oku ke ngau e whakataha moia?
Oku mau ngau e whakataha pe ka oku ke he pe oku ngau e mono ngau e. Oku kono focus koe credit. And so I'm so sorry I forgot to introduce what I do for work. So I'm wasn't very clear, but I'm a mortgage loan officer with Cross Country Mortgage, and I've been a licensed mortgage loan officer for 7 years now. Before that, I was a loan processor, and so I work with the bank to give people loans so they qualify for the house, and then I refer them to Tema, and she'll start giving them. She's the realtor,
Yeah.
and she helps them find the houses. So I handle strictly only financing on the house, so just mortgages.
Koia.
Mhm.
Koe credit establish he credit ko mana tu ile rei he malere mai he taiwa hiwa wa. Pa mafie mao ki whakatau hama ki I whare, nei ki I whare na masai iai. Pa mao rewa ki he totahange peko koe, mahalo na e api pe nima, pia mi he whamiri koe na mau nofo, pia whaik eke mai he e whine e ki, kutanga, koe pena maka na whakatau e maka I Hawaii, pia koe mea pe iana e mau, ta mai rewa he whine e ki ka te au. Pālangian. Kai te lau ko whakatau ha apiheni ka pau koe ki I mea pia o ke tipeni ai. Ta mai koe ne whaino hinoen. Alu ki he sias matu I ke lere whake sias I ai tai wahi wawa.
Koia.
Alo ai ha o ki I credit card ai. Pea ke alu ki he au si wili ai ha ki I credit card ai. Pa whakaukau te au whuki koe fo I too much debt ia ke te au. Kai ke. Pea tame, alpako whakatau haki me au tola te au. Pea aiko ho credit cardi, pea o mai ko e pila ko ia ka pau tola tahanima. He taimi koe na e tola tahanima ia he mahina. Ke he maa e taimi koe. Pea ke te tong pe tola tahanima. O te ke te tong tola e wanoa, pea o te ke te tong whaka osi. Ai tola te au tupu. Tong pe koe ki tahanima. Ta mai rewa ia kono uhinga, whe mao he panke ke nau sio, oku ke responsible ke pay ho o pila pe aku pay on time.
Koia.
Pe koe kamata angai e ma ai crediti pe ma whakatau mai e ma ki freezer pe me au si wili. Koe kamata angai pe au tanaki a te vai, tanaki a reni, mangahi umea pe he unau sio whakaloko fua ki ai. Pe ka paurewa ka toko taha ki te ka tamai whine e ki oua, na ake pay late ha o pila. Pero sai pe ka pau ka rei tu o taha, ka koe ne tautou reiti, ko apply at koe ki ai hao whare, nau sio pe nau tolo ki neonga koe ki ka pau ke reiti pe he tola e taha nima, tola e wanoa, wanoa e tola e taha awhi. Koe whakaino hino ia a e whine e ki, ka ko si mama a te whine e ki. Ka e whakafoka te taimiga te koe eni.
That's excellent advice, from the lady that gave you regarding credit. Koe mahu inga ai credit, koe o mahu inga au pito, he ku tarange ai crediti ki he kaupanke, pe koe how much can they trust you? It's a measure of trust. Ka pao kai ke totongi koe ho pila, pe ka pao kai ke lahi ho whaga, ke ho credit like RC Really and Sears. It doesn't give them a good measure or enough information to determine how trustworthy you are. So ogu mahu inga au pito. Kapau, like you said, kapau kai ke lava o totongi ki, monthly payment tora tahanima. Hua noa mortgages now, ogu now osi toluafe, uafe ni mangeao is normal in Utah now. He kamata anga ai whakatau api with the prices the way they are right now. Yeah.
Aia ko advice ia ka mautolu katoa, ka pau ke whima o ke whakatau hao api. Ulaki whakasihasio ho crediti, pera pau o ku kaikererei, fixe crediti ko ne mau ko ia, pe ke toki haurewa o mahino pe ia ko pau ke, you have to have an employment, pe have enough money,
Ia.
Ka o ko umare ia ho vahe o pehe, o ko e hange ia ko level of trust ia. Aia ka pau ka ke trust ki tai ke tola taha ka ke mai tola taha whee.
Yeah. It's the best way to measure trustworthy in America.
Koia.
Yeah.
Hangi ka lau. Io. Hokat ko.
Yeah. Koe I would say ko ta osi tara noa ke paanga, pe more crediti, and you mentioned job.
Ko ia.
Obviously, o mau inga au pito, ai mau ngā we, pe aku fe mau ke show a stable history of work. Pe koe work history o fe mau ke show ke bank, koe ta'u e ua. So you have to show 2-year work history. But with the kakai tonga, kulahi ange kau iate, and we get paid cash for services we do. We're very much entrepreneurs within our people. We have a lot of businesses that will start and we don't even know it's a business. And so it's important for, a perfect example, iate, or, if you're selling food, whatever your source of income is, kapau kuke, if you're not working at a job, faile hotex, properly. So it has to be filed at all the income. The reason why we like being self-employed and being able to file taxes is because, a lot of people don't report the income because they don't have to pay the taxes. And so it's important to file all of our income and to have a good loan officer and a good tax person that understands mortgages, because they can help you minimize your taxes that you owe when you're self-employed, like if you work iate or something. And but they could still help you show enough income to qualify. That's kind of hard for me to explain in Tongan, so maybe you could translate that for me, Afa.
Yeah, good. And hange eni go tui go e kamangamata na tanga e whakataha ke mea ane o maho inga. A rewa ka paurewa o whima o ke le rei e te tuunga koe pa whatau a pi ula ki pau ke le rei e krediti. Paka pau ka ke le rei e krediti pe a waipe kautaha unau fix e krediti. Paka pahanko lawe koe ka pau koe iate, to tonu maupe ke te hanga ripoti ka oku mea whaitariha pea nau tolu ka oku. Koe taimi ko apply ka haloni ke he whare, pe koe taimia oku nau wongo si ai. Pe o mai rewa o whakatatau ai trust ko ia ki he whainga rate pe moe a mauni koe. Ka pau koe nau trust pe only 100,000. Kai ke fuloko mauha api pehe ia he tainimi mahalo. Ko alhanko lawe me 250,000 and up lahi ngai u api. Tu ke ka pau ka fix up ku to lahi tau kakai unau poto no fix up. Ka oku maho inga au pito i ngā we ke tau e ua a historia e te ngā we. Ko manatu e tokotaha. Nei whai ki ai tokoni ai whine moto a goni ko lawe ki ai pālangia ki mua. Ngā ue he mahina ono tūri mei ai alu ki he mahina tōlu tūri mei ai alu ki he lawa rewa e whaitawe taha. Pero nā atu koe ke ai koe e nā mea tinai mai he panke. Aia koe no whamo ni ia o lawe koe ane nai. Ko pau ke mao ha employment mahino ho ngā ue o ku steady I he tau e ua. Na haware pe ko o atu a launia peke no whako he ngā ue peke mea rewa hoko koe nau te whiu tari ke nau paanga koe nau tau na nau launi. Peke mea rewa te nau whai koe send ki he collection agency koe te whakapiko ange ia. Kai whawhokia te taimiga koe eni. Malo.
Malo apito afa. Ko ia, so paanga for down payment, credit, and you need credit repair if you need help with that, and then a steady 2-year job history. Those are the 3 main big things to focus on. And everyone listening to this, if you don't own a house already, you should put it on your dream board, vision board. It's very important for you. And there's statistics that show, when we koe kakai tonga, koe kakai, very helpful, kakai tokoni.
Koia.
And when we have putus or anything, family things that come up, the tongue and culture, we're taught to help each other. And so one thing I like to challenge everybody is to help yourself. Don't get rid of the, all the fatongias. That's something that we carry. I think we're born with, it doesn't go away.
Koia.
But make a fatongia to yourself and to your family to make sure that you can buy a house, because it's going to give you a security, give you peace of mind, but it's also, koe ngawe taimini Amerika, okay ke loko lahi ai kau ngawe o ku provide pension or, retirement. Hey, pe ke toia ai Social Security by the time I retire. Hey, maybe not. But the ones who are able to whakatau api, that is your security, and sometimes that's all that people have when they do retire. But boy, is it a lifesaver, because just cost of living, going Medicaid, Medicare, we just get old, and it's a way to provide for our families, and I think it's very important.
Koia. Na ia e vahe mai ai pālang hene ne tala mai. Koe tuu koia e whakatau a piu tāni he kai ke toi toi ki lalo. Koe ne kakapenia ana alu ki lalo. Ngange api koe na e 250,000 ko na wofi na toge 400,000. Eh?
Koia.
So.
Yeah. Taimi koe na whakatau api, 1970. Koe interest rate na e mahalo koe 12% he taimi koe. What was your interest rate, Afa, when you bought your house in 1992?
No, we bought a home in 94, so it took
94.
us 2 years to build our credit. Eh? Koe interest rate, kai ke umana tu, hanga teo na toi refinance hifo ki lalo, mahalo na around 4 or about 4.
In 1994?
Yeah, 1994.
Oh, okay. That's not bad. The average, if you look back in the last 20 years, it's probably like 8%.
It was there are different types of loan, eh? Ko mana tui koe Fannie Mae, they are fine mona tolu pa koe first. Ona nau kiwe credit ke first time home buyer mo ngai umea pehe. Ka ku how da beha ki minte tolu ka pa te ke vahe mai beha ngai mea o ke whaam ke tuku mai ka tatoki programa hoko mai to ki vahe le rei ngai umea koe ni. Malo.
Okay. Oguai pe polo kalama ki kau first time home buyer o fele kau polo kalama ku available ki he kakai o fie whakatau api. The first time home buyer ka pau e lava o hiki o krediti to like 660 is almost the standard in all 50 states.
Koia.
We're licensed to help people in all 50 states with their mortgage. So 660 is about the standard for first-time homebuyer programs. E lava pe ai pure anga o tokoni for first-time homebuyers o tokoni cover the down payment to pay the whole down payment and sometimes all the closing costs.
Koia.
So ko Utah o Guyaye Porokalama, one of the best in the country. It covers everything. And you can buy a house with no money. You just have to have your credit score 660 and great income to be able to cover the mortgage. So Oh, fere ai u polokalama. There's too many to kind of go over with you guys. There's FHA,
Koia.
FHA, ogu saya FHA to people who have lower credit. So if you have a credit score of 580 and you have your down payment ready to go, we could help you buy a house right now. So that's FHA's requirements.
Koia.
And there's conventional loan. So there's two different, there's a difference. FHA's government, conventional is just your Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac traditional mortgages.
Koia.
Yeah.
E lava peke ta te programa hoko mai ki hanga kawa e ngahi u kehe o e conventional loan, peko e hau hinga usai e ka pau te ki aloi peko e FHA, e sai pe ia eni?
Yeah, io, saipe.
Io. Ka kuo ose ta taimi, whamalo lahe at ka koe eni he tuku pia mao whainga maari ke lawa whai ha whepo tānoa aki whika o aki mungahi mea o ke tau kei ki ai ke lava tokoni ki ho tau kakai pia hange ko lau a tema, you get the pass. O whaat ka koe i o whaat ka koe eni mo e family koe taimi hoko mai ko tui e laheangi ai e taimi ke whai ha o wahe wahe.
Malo, o whātu.
Io,
Thank you
malo,
so much. Okay.
Malo. Ko iai ho eiki mo e haamata pule, whamalo at ka teki mo tolo mo tuku taimi, ka e tuku mo ake tuku at haki fo i tuaki pēne taha pēr ka hiri ko ia, pēr mo tau fo i whasi pēr tau toki hoko atu. Malo.
Ko e makete ki e whale nofo anga mo e whale nofo totongi o ku tō lalo au pito. Pea kua to e to o foki, mo e lao nene ta ofi a hono tūri ha taha me i hano nofo anga. Ko ki tau tolu, o ku tau fie ma o whale nofo totongi, pe fie ma o ke whakatau ha tau api, o ku kei fie ma o ke tau malawa, o whakahoko eni, o i kai ha whiriwhiri mānako. Hange ko e ni, o ka pau ke whaingata ia me COVID-19, pe ko hoa mea whanua kehe, pe koe toko taha koe o ku ke kiri melo melo, o ku ke iai pe aho to tonu ki ha whale nofo anga ke fie fie ai. O ka pau lewa au ke lotonga kumi hao whale nofo totongi, o pe whakatau hao api, pe au ke o ngoi, o kai ke tau ahono tokanga i kina aho fie mau. Pe hange o ku ke o ngoi, o ku iai halau lanu, mo whiriwhiri mānako, ka hono tokanga i kina koe. Oua te ke tae tokanga ki ai. Ta ke whetutaki ki he komsoni ki he totonu e tangata o Washington i he whika telefoni. Taha, walu no noa, ua toru tolu, tolu ua whawhitu ke nao tokoni atu. Teke toi whainga tā i ange, o ka pau teke whakalongolongo i ai me ani. Pea o ai hoko ai laulanu i he fie mau nofo anga mo e whale nofo totongi ke ne ue sia koe. Ko e whika telefoni, taha, walu no noa, ua tolu tolu, tolu ua whawhitu. Ko e ngā aue ko e ni o kua atuia i e tokoni ai pot ngā aue o kune tokanga i kina e whale nofo anga totongi mo e ngahi whakalakalaka o e ngahi kolo. Ko e komsoni o e wāhenga o Washington ki e totonu e tangata o ku anau tolu ai ngahi whakamatala o ku atu i he liliu lea ko e ni. O ku i kai foki ki o mai hanga tonu e he liliu lea ko e ni ai tefto i whakakaukau o e pure anga.
Vai ko whakalame lame, whakalame lame ki la pa. Kui whakamalo anga o e se singe tui tonga. Whakalame lame, whakalame lame ki la pa. Kui whakamalo anga o e se singe tui tonga. Que mana tui
Whamalo pito hoeki mo e hamata pule mo tutaimi ka mo mea mai ki he paenga o he wā ke tariwhalau. Whamalo ki a Annie e ngai tokoni ko ia pia kutui e toi ia e ngai tokoni lahi. I he mawene mai pe o kutui e aonga ki ho tau ka inga pia hangei ko lau ko ia a Annie. Na e ngalo ki tuku mai Annie a whika telefoni ko ia ofisi. Mohanga whakamanatui o ku statei e ni manoa o ku nau lava o whai a launi e state e ni manoa. Ko e taha whakia o he ngahi u tāpuaki u te ma o he ngahi whakataha mo Annie ko tema Hankin ko Annie o tano pia ki toki whai hangahi wahe lahi i he wawene mai pe. Kaike, i he taini mi ko loto ke foki ki he taha o ngai tau mua ko toa pe pia me he polokama lofa talamatangi me he BYU Provo substation ko ia ai painga ai wā ke tari whalau. Tai tali rei heni ai tokoua koe ni ai ana heni i he wika ko osi ai ko Tomasi Halaki. Toketa Tomasi Halaki pia tai tali rei heni ke whahoko atu ai ngahi whipotano aki o whikau aki mo e mea ko ena ne hanga o wahe wiko o si. Ko hea ngahi mea e lawa he e mātua o whai ke oua e nofo ai whanau me he ako te kei ke mau e nau tipilo ma. Pea mo whakato ngai, when you're ready, Dr. Halak, come in. But mo hanga whakato ngai ko e drop out, piko nofo ko ia te kei mau ha tipilo ma. O kui kai ke ngata pe ia i elementary school, pe koe high school. Toi kau kia ai kolisi, o lahi au pita e drop out i pia me he bachelors, o lahi taha e drop out i, hoka kia ai masters, ka o kiai pe mo e drop out, ia teke nau tolu ko ia, o ku nau whenga ko ia ke mao nau toke tā. Pe kono uhinga ia, e tau hanga toni e tau whanau ke nau loto lahi. He koe taimika o te ngāwe ki hoto toke tā, pia amusia ki nau tolu ia ko kai ki nau ngāwe. Ka koe taimi whainga taa taha ia. Ko ne toki hu mai pe Dr. Halaki pa tau hokat ki ai kau wahe atuen he kotui e aonga. Kotui i he koe taha ngai mea he kai ke toi ngalo ia te au i he mau fōfua whakataha na mau toko taha. Na e tari koi ki mautolu ki he polokalama ko ia ki he toke tā. Ai ku apply e toko te au tupu, ka e tari e toko tātaha. Pea wahano uhinga na e tari ai pe toko tātaha. Ui he ko whemo e kina ai kau palofesa ia he ku osi lahi e nau ngahi lauti, pea koe kau palofesa foki. Nau whema e nau tolu ke pulusi e nau ngahi u whakatotolo. Pea kairewa ke aha nau taimi, ke nau hanga o tau peheng nau hanga o whakahino i koe, peka taimi nau hanga whakatau kei ia i koe, pea nau peheng nau tolu, fui toa tātaha pea u whie mau. Pea koe ulaki fōfua aha koe ia na mau ngāwe ai, mau whakataha atu ai, koe aho ia ni maari e kia te au, kono uhinga he koe fōfua exercise koe na e whai, na kei koha mea whakaako, kana e tala mai ka mau tolu. Fui Hawaii e taha e mau nofo ai taerewa koe toko wānu kumai, Dr. Thomas Halaki, ke tau hoka rewa ki ai go hiko no taimi. Dr. Halak, malo e le rei, do you want to go back to where we end up last week and start from there?
Malo le rei, Tama. It's a pleasure to be back with you again. And yes, I think we have some conversation to continue from last week. So I'd like to continue sharing some of the information that I've gathered. So, should I just dive in, or do you have some questions to get started?
There was a question, I think from I got only 2 questions, but I'll share one because it was based on the what parents can do. Eh? And I started to share in Tongan about our responsibility to make sure that our students don't quit.
Yeah.
So if you could share your thoughts in that would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think you're absolutely right. We don't want students to quit. Students don't want to quit, but sometimes they get a little overwhelmed. And so we talked last time towards the end, we kind of rushed through it a little bit, but we talked a little bit about the possibility of college students taking a gap year. And that gap year needs to be well planned if that's an option a student chooses to take. We saw a lot of students during COVID that took a gap year because they didn't want to take online classes or other circumstances related to COVID. But sometimes that's the best thing to do for a student who's been stressed. You have to remember that these students have been in school for 12 years before they get to college, right? They've been going to school for 12 years. That's their life. That's everything that they've been focused on even before they get to college. So if they take a break, then I think as long as it's well planned, then that's something that they can do. I took a gap year when I graduated from high school. I knew I wanted to go on to college, but I was tired. I was a little burned out. So I took a gap year. I worked for a year, saved some money, and then I spent some time in Tonga. And you and I met on Wiha. And so I came back to the States and started college 3 years after my high school classmates. So I was a little bit behind, but I dug in right away, and my mind was clear and I was focused, and I was able to get through my degree. So I think as long as it's well planned, you have a starting date and an ending date, then that's not necessarily a bad thing. Does that answer the question? I'm not hearing you if you're still there. I hope we didn't get disconnected.
Yeah, I got him, and that's answered the question. But I went back. My mind went back to Palu and Matau Vere's feke all the time. Those guys, they know how to cook the feke, and it's interesting because the way that they cook the feke, there's a certain way they do it, beloloi and all of those, in order for us to enjoy them, right? So in terms of what parents can do, is make sure that we supportive to our children to make sure they enjoy it. Okay?
Yes.
They enjoy the process, things like that. But I'll turn the time back to you.
Yes, I agree. I always tell my students, if you're not having fun, something's wrong. When you get into, especially when students get into college, they should be focused on whatever their degree is, their major. So they should be taking a lot of classes in an area that will help them in their career for the rest of their life. And they should enjoy that. You should enjoy whatever your work is, you should enjoy it. And so if they're not having fun along the way, there's something wrong, and they need to step back and reevaluate where they are. I had a student a few years ago in a class. She was really struggling. She came to class and didn't seem motivated. Her assignments were not up to par. They were poorly done. And I invited her to my office to have a conversation about her performance. And as we talked, she shared with me that she didn't feel like she was in the right major. Her heart was not in her studies, in the topic, and she had some interests in other areas. We talked about that a little bit. And, of course, in my area, in journalism, I like to see students going into that major because I think it's fun for me. For me, it's fun. But my education isn't about, or a student's education, rather, is not about me. It's about that student. And not all students think that's a fun major. And with this particular young lady, it seemed to me like many people in her life had suggested that she go into this major. Maybe she was good at it at first and had some natural talent, but it wasn't what she desired. And as we talked, I felt like I needed to give her permission to change majors. Now, of course, my influence or my position at the time as her instructor, I had no influence over her changing her major or not. I had no authority to do anything, but I think that she just needed to hear somebody tell her it's okay. It's okay to make that change. And she got through that semester and she changed her major. I never saw her on campus again, but she worked at a store that I went to frequently, and I would see her at that store, and she was always so happy to see me because that little piece of advice that I gave her changed her life, and she found a major that she enjoyed. So I think that's important for both students and parents to remember that the student, it's their education and it's their career that they're going to spend 30 or 40 years doing, so they should enjoy it.
Yeah, of course. It's always good for us parents to, that's why it's important for us to support our students. That doesn't mean we cannot ask them questions and talk to them. And if I may switch back to Tongan now for a little bit, ko ia I ho eiki mo e haamata pūle ka pau ku kai ke whiawhia a ho whanau ko ia I he kolisi I he meita ko ia o kunau o ko ia o whenga I ko ia ke maua na Korea I he osko e ako ko ia no kovi ka pau te ke lava whai a he whare I ka nau tolu pero pau kai te ke lava ko le ka taha o kune lava whai ha whare I le rei ka nau tolu ke tokoni atu ki a te koe kai ke aha no kovi e te kore tokoni ka taha ka pau kai ke te mau ha tau keiki ai. Hangega toko taha koe na e lawe ke ai Dr. Halaki o ku whia mau ke tau whia kai ke ngata pehe mo uini ka whia I he ako e tau whanau pa whia whake tau whanau I he na wako goia au whai. Turn the time back to you, Dr. Halaki.
Sure. So I wanted to spend some time this evening talking about what students can do to be successful in college. Is that fitting with the conversation we're having tonight?
Yep.
So last week we talked a little bit about what parents can do. We reviewed that just now in a little bit, but students can do several things to help themselves out as well. So I guess a lot of this is assuming that a student has already completed high school, or maybe in some cases a GED, a general education certificate. However, they complete that and they're able to start at college. And if you're a first generation student, many of these things will apply to you. The first thing that I want you to know is to ask for help. When you get on a college campus, a university campus, there are people there that want to see you succeed. In fact, I would say that almost everyone that is working on that campus that is there wants to see students succeed. As a faculty member, as a professor, that's part of why I love my job, is because I love helping students. And so whether you reach out to one of your professors, or whether you reach out to maybe a department administrator, or maybe someone in the financial aid office, or any other office, ask for help. There's no shame in that. That's what you're there for. You're there to get an education. You have to remember that you're not expected to know everything. That's why you're in college getting your education, because you don't know everything. And in fact, you will discover that the more you learn and the more you know, the more you have to learn. So ask questions, ask for help. One of the things that has been a little bit discouraging to many faculty members in recent years, faculty members are required to hold what's called office hours. And that's when they are required to be in their office and to be available to students, for the students to come and ask questions, or have consultation, or maybe it's just a conversation about their career preparation or whatever it may be. But many students in the last few years are hesitant to take advantage of those office hours. And I would encourage any student to not get caught in that trap, but do take advantage of office hours. Your professors want to see you. They want to learn your name. They want to recognize your face, and they want to help you succeed in college. And I would venture to say that those students who build relationships with their professors oftentimes will be more successful. Not because professors play favorites, but because as humans, human nature, we're more likely to help people that we know or are familiar with than people who are strangers to us.
Okay.
And so,
I have a question for you, Dr. Halaki.
Yeah.
In our community, Tongans, students don't like to ask.
Yeah.
What will you suggest that they do, or things like that?
Yeah. Well, I recognize it's unfamiliar territory, and especially a college campus may be unfamiliar territory to a student. And I know it's a cultural change a little bit, but as you live among other cultures, whether it be the United States, in Australia, New Zealand, in Europe, as people who come from different cultures, we have to adapt to the culture that we're living in a little bit. We don't want to give up the rich culture that we come from. We talked last week, I think I told you about my father and how he immigrated to the United States, and brought his culture with him. But he adapted also, and he learned how to navigate within the culture he was living in. And that was something that I had to experience when I was in Tonga, right? I had to learn how to navigate the culture. I had to learn the cultural norms, so that I didn't inadvertently offend people by my actions, or so that I could take advantage of the cultural things that were there that might help me accomplish my goals.
Yeah, I remember the very first time that we met in Uiha, right? And I thought, man, this guy asked too many questions. Yep.
I ask questions. Because I want to know. And how do you learn if you don't ask questions? If you don't know something, then you have to ask questions to find out.
Agreed. I think that's the point that we'll probably have to make, that you're going to school and you want to know something and you don't know, you have to ask. Just simply ask, put your hands up, and then you say, would you please explain that one more time, you know, things like that. But then the time back to you.
Yeah. And I would say, some students are intimidated by asking a question in front of their classmates or their peers. And that might be a little more intimidating. So if you don't ask the question in class, that's what your professor's office hours are for. You can go and sit down and talk with your professor one-on-one, and you can ask all the questions you want, and your classmates will never know. You'll probably get some advanced information for the next class period, and then you can go into that class period knowing a little bit more, and your classmates will think you're just really, really bright.
Yeah. So, and you're going to enjoy it.
Yes,
since you know more.
Yeah, because if you're struggling in an area that you don't know what you're doing, and you feel like people are telling you you're doing something wrong or something like that, then that's not enjoyable. That's very stressful. So find a way to enjoy it and find a way to learn and gather information. That's why you're a student. You're there to gather information and learn.
Yeah.
You can't be expected to know everything. If you knew everything, then why go to school?
Unless if you have the Urim and the Thummim, though.
Yeah. So going along with that, if you're a first generation student, you may not be aware that on almost every campus that I'm aware of, there are support resources for students also. Certainly office hours with your professors are important, but there's other resources that are available. There's tutoring that a student can get that's no cost to you. You can have a personal tutor. You can also go to other resources on campus that will help. There's help specifically for first generation students. The universities have recognized that that's a unique population, and that they oftentimes need a little extra help. So go find those resources. Again, ask questions so that you know where to go. Ask your favorite professor, where do I go to get some extra help? And I tell you, that professor will be so excited that you're wanting to get extra help.
Yeah, since you and I are professors at different universities, I think that is experiences that we can share that will enrich the lives of our students. I think that I'm total agreement with you. I love it when students sometimes stay after class and ask me because they don't want to ask in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And that way you can explain a lot more, and then you can see their faces change the next time they come around on the next class.
They get excited, and you see the light turn on in their eyes, and they just have a much more fulfilling experience.
Yeah, and they have the confidence. The thing that I like, some students never ask questions, and when the exam or quizzes, when you return it to them, and they start complaining, that I don't particularly like.
Right. We, as professors, we like students to ask questions, right?
Yeah.
We love that. So students should never hesitate. In fact, I tell my students, because I teach in journalism, have you ever met a reporter that doesn't ask a question? Right? That's what they do for a living. They get paid to ask questions. So I tell my students when they come into my class, you are now a journalist. And every journalist has a question to ask. So please ask your questions, and I will gladly answer them.
Yeah. And then as time goes on, you learn how to ask question that is not a yes and no, but it will bring clarity to what you are trying to understand. So
yes, So let's talk a little bit about studying at college,
Okay.
because that's another thing another tip for studying. Um, one of the things that I heard recently in my field, we like a lot of creativity. Creativity is how we learn a lot of times, whether it's artistic creativity or just thought creativity. I know your background is in biology and science. We need people that have creativity in that area too, because that's how you discover new things. And I heard the term recently, creativity with discipline. And I think that second word is so important. Discipline. Discipline is the most important part of being successful in college. I tell people all the time. We talked last week about my grades in high school and even in college when I was first getting my bachelor's degree. And my grades weren't very good, but I stuck to it. I had discipline to keep going. I had tenacity. And I think that's what's so important. That's what got me through to being a doctor, is just sticking to it and being committed to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. If I may share a story, I hope that you remember. We were going from Uiha to Feremea, and it was hot. For some reason, the sun was out in full. Was so hot that when I remember those sand getting to our feet and the sandals, we had to stop, take those out, and then you said, "Man, can we rest?" And I said, "Yeah, let's rest." And we rest for half an hour, and off we went. Sometimes you gotta rest for a little bit, but then you get up and keep going.
Yeah. Yep. So resting is okay. Stopping, we don't want to see that. Just keep going a little bit at a time. So as you study as a student, I think it's important to bring that discipline in. Set a schedule for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Find a good time in the day where you can get a lot of good studying done. Find a place where you can study that is effective for you. When I was first at school at BYU, I went to the library and I found a quiet place in the library and I started studying. You know what happened?
Well, what happened?
You know what happened. I fell asleep. It was so quiet.
You weren't snoring, were you?
Yeah, probably. I probably was. And I learned quickly, I don't study well in the library. I don't study where it's silent. And so I went to the cafeteria and I found a place where I could hear noise, but none of it was directed at me.
Okay.
Right? Other students would see their friends and they would talk to their friends, but I was in my little corner and people would leave me alone. But I wouldn't fall asleep because there was noise around me. That's what worked for me. Now, other students, they want to go to the library where it's quiet and they don't have any disruptions. Or maybe you go back to your bedroom in your apartment or your dorm room. Find a place that's effective for you to study, and create your study space, and create your study schedule. And here's another trick that is really good for studying. Find other good students to study with. Good students. Look around in your classes and see the ones that are succeeding and make friends with them. And then get a study group together of students who are all motivated to do good things. Those goofballs that are just trying to be class clown and so forth, that aren't doing very well in their grades, you don't want a study group with them. They might be fun to hang out with on the weekend, but for your studies, you want to be around those students that are excelling, that are motivated, and that are working hard. And you want to be one of those. So gather together with them. That's part of your good study skills. In scheduling, finding a good place, and then finding good people to surround yourself with.
Good advice.
Yeah. So, and I can't take credit for all of these. These are some research that I found that share some studies that have found that this is what works well for students. So I don't want to take credit for all of these good ideas. I don't know how many good ideas I've come up with on my own in life, but I often rely on the good ideas of other people.
And you make it better.
I try.
So how about the last one, about be mindful about nutrition and rest?
Yes.
Nutrition and rest.
Nutrition and rest, that's so important. I think sometimes we forget that we have to rest, right? If we go all the time, our bodies and our minds get worn out, and we can't think clearly, and we aren't in control of our emotions, and all sorts of things just get out of whack. So, we hear a lot about college students, the starving college student, right? Because they don't have money to kailele, right? But I think there's some things you can be mindful of what you're eating, and don't just eat a bunch of junk food. Don't just eat the chips or other saimini. Yeah, get some good food, vegetables. Make sure you eat your vegetables and your fruits. Get some good protein, and so forth. You don't have to be on a fad diet, but just be mindful of what you're eating, and then get a good night's rest. A good night's rest is anywhere from 7 to 9 hours a night. And I know it's really tempting to say, I've got a big important test tomorrow morning, I'm going to stay up all night and study. But I guarantee you, if you get a good night's sleep, your mind will be more fresh, and it will be able to recall the information that you've learned much more easily and more rapidly. So the point of an exam is not to cram right immediately beforehand, but to study all along the way, and then in that exam, know the material, because you've learned it the last several weeks, and you know that material well, and your mind is fresh and ready to focus on the material at hand. So eat well and get a good night's rest every night, and that will do amazing things.
Okay. If I may interject one here, Dr. Howard, because of the nature of the Tongan students. The having rest or good nutrition, the buffet are well known for the Tongan students, but the rest, a lot of them are in football, a lot of them are in 1 or 2 or 3 sports. I know some people in 3 different sports.
In college?
In college. So, talk about nutrition, they're usually they don't eat healthy, nutritious food. But rest, when I talk to some of them, they say, hey, how many hours you slept? Man, I got lucky last night. And say, oh yeah, I got 5 hours. And you can tell by looking at their face that these guys are worn out.
Yeah. So for those students that are varsity athletes at a university, those teams have training tables, right, or cafeterias where those students can go eat, and they get fed pretty well. I've been in some of those on occasion, and those student athletes get a lot of good food, or at least they have access to it. So again, make sure that you're eating a lot of protein, a lot of fruits and vegetables. Those are the good things for you. Be careful of too many carbohydrates. That's breads or crackers or chips, things like that. You have to need some of those, but not too much. Eat a lot of meat and fruits and vegetables.
Fefe kumala moi ufi.
Right, but be cautious not to eat too much. I remember when I was in Tonga, the king was had some health problems. He was very heavy, and he went to his doctor in New Zealand. And the story was that his doctor told him, you can only eat one potato a day. And he says, well, doctor, in Tonga, we don't have potatoes. He says, well, what kind of food do you eat? And he said, oh, we have ufi, Tongan yams. And he says, the doctor says to him, the king, he says, okay, you can only eat one ufi a day. That didn't do much to reduce the king's weight, but we can choose otherwise. Choose wisely. It's not to say don't take out kumala or ufi altogether, but just moderate in those things. Eat a lot of feke and ika.
Yeah.
Right. All good things. One thing, going back to those students that are involved in a lot of sports, I don't know too many varsity athletes that do more than maybe 2 sports at college, but if they're involved in a lot of different sports, maybe they need to reevaluate their workload. This is another tip that I found about how to be successful is don't overload yourself when you're in college with other things. Now, sports, especially if a student is got a scholarship, that's very important, right? You've made a commitment to play for that team, and you want to perform well. You want to be your very best because that's what's helping you pay for school. So you need to involve that. But look at your extracurricular activities. Are you playing on too many intramural sport teams? Or are you involved with too many clubs? Or are you involved with too many friends on the weekends? And, you need to evaluate how you're spending your time. When you're in college, that should be your number one priority, is to finish your college degree. So whatever it is you need to do to be successful at that, that's what you need to do. So be cautious about overloading. There's a lot of opportunities at a university. There are music concerts, there are clubs that you can get involved with that are related to what you're studying. There are clubs that are not related to what you're studying. There's esports clubs, there's bicycling clubs, there's chess clubs. There's a club for just about everything. At my university, where I teach at Kansas State University, we have about 150 clubs on campus.
Wow.
So there's a lot of different things you can get involved with, which is great. It's a time in your life where you have access to all of those things, but you need to be cautious about not getting involved with too many of those clubs. Choose 1 or 2 and budget your time so that you stay focused on your studies. And remember, we talked just a minute ago about finding a schedule, dedicated time for your studies. If you don't know when you're going to do your homework, then your homework will never get done.
Yep.
So set a good time. Maybe it's Tuesday afternoons, or maybe it's Wednesday evenings, or Friday mornings, whatever the time is in your schedule that works, make sure you set it aside. And you know, the best app to use on your cell phone, the best app to use is your calendar app. And put time in there. Even if you don't have a set appointment to see someone, you set an appointment for yourself to do your studies and put it in your calendar and obey your calendar.
Yeah. Put in your calendar and obey it rather than put it in there for the show and you don't do anything about it.
Yes. So, yeah, that's the best app you can have on your phone. If you don't have any other app, use your calendar app.
So speaking of app, maybe you can think about how you spend your time on social media, I'm sure. What's your thought on that?
Well, you know, we have a professor in our department, a friend of mine, who challenges his students each semester to go just 24 or 48 hours with no social media at all. Turn off your phone, put it away for 48 hours. Don't text anyone, don't call anyone, don't get on your social media. And the most frequent comment that he gets back from his students after they do this experiment are things like, wow, I had so much time to get things done. Or another frequent comment is, that was so relaxing. I didn't realize how stressed I am because of social media. And there was a term several years ago that we still hear occasionally, but not as often, called FOMO. It's not a Tongan word, although it's spelled like one. It stands for fear of missing out.
Fear of missing out.
Right? And so many students are in that mode of FOMO, fear of missing out, that they have to look at all of their notifications, all of their text messages during class and so forth. I saw recently an article from it was a high school teacher. And she asked her students during class to come up to the chalkboard and just mark on the chalkboard every time they got a notification on their phone during class. And she didn't tell them to turn off their phone or anything. She just said, come up and mark every time you get a notification in class. And during a 50-minute class, there was, I don't remember the number, but it was more than one per minute.
Wow.
And every one of those is a disruption to the class. It's a disruption to your study time. And there's a lot of good things that can happen on social media, but you need to remember that term we talked about, creativity with discipline.
Yep.
Right? You need to discipline yourself to have times where you shut off that social media. Put your phone face down so you don't see them, turn it on silent, and say, this is the time that I'm going to focus. And have your head in the same place as where you're sitting. Right? You can sit someplace, but your head can wander off. Focus your mind and be where you're sitting.
It's great advice. Sometimes a lot of us, when we were students, study, and then our mind is probably wondering about somebody else, kailele, or
yeah,
or other things.
We do that as adults oftentimes too, right? Sometimes my wife calls me on it, and we're sitting at the table having dinner, and I'll pick up my phone and I'll look at that text message that came in a few minutes ago, or I'll look at a response and it's in the middle of a conversation I'm having with my wife. And she'll say, "Hey, I'm right here. Talk to me." And I have to ask her forgiveness and apologize to her. I say, "You're right. I need to be here because this is our time together. And I need to be present in this conversation."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're guilty at one point or another on that kind of thing. We need to focus and turn those things down, especially for students. A lot of students drop out that I work with, and I told them I'm curious about what hours will you give to your time that you spend on social media. So, and I'll give you 8 hours in a day. Tell me how many hours or percentage of the 8 hours do you spend on social media? Sadly, some of them 75%.
Yeah.
Okay. And those are the students who struggle. The students who say probably 15 or 10%. Those are the A students who are doing well. So
I would tell you also that students who are spending 75 or 80% of their time on social media don't even perceive that that's what they're doing. They might tell you, "Oh, I spent 25 or 30%. But if their time was actually measured by someone who's tracking it, they'll find it's actually much higher than what they perceive.
Yeah. So there are a lot of things that compete for our time. Right?
Yeah.
And this is right here is how to keep students from dropping out.
Yeah.
And these are what students can do. Perhaps parents can do is to remind our kids that, hey, spend your quality enough time on your homework and your study. Then in your own spare time, a little bit on social media and things like that. Don't spend much of your time on social media because education will suffer and your future will suffer. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And here's another thing that I did when I was in college, and I think it's a good idea also, is each semester take a class that is a low stress, more fun class. For instance, I took a golf class one semester, and I think it was just a 1-credit class, and we just went and learned how to play golf. I took an art class another semester, and I went and drew pictures. And, I would just try to take a class that was a little bit different pace, because what that does for our mind, and student athletes may not have this problem because they get out on the playing field for practice every day. But the rest of us, we need the opportunity to still use our mind, but shift instead of thinking about mathematical problems or equations or chemistry formulas or things like that. That takes a lot of real good brain power. Sometimes it's good to just give our mind an activity that changes our pace a little bit. Something that we enjoy, but we're still learning, right? I didn't know how to play golf in college, but I had a roommate for a while who was a golfer, and he encouraged me. And it was a good time to get out and clear my mind. I didn't have to buy golf clubs. The university provided them for me. I just went and hit a little ball with a stick. And I had to think about how I was going to do that to be successful in getting the ball in the hole. And so I was still learning. I was still using my brain, but it was in a very different way than I did in the rest of my classes. And I think that's a good technique for any student. Take a break and have some fun. We talked early at the beginning of the hour, we talked about having fun in our classes. And that's one way that you can do that.
Okay. Even with that, you try not to have too much of that, huh?
Not too much, right? It needs to be, and it depends what kind of fun we're having, right?
Yeah.
I hope my students have fun in the classes they take with me, but that's a different kind of fun than what they do on Friday night or Saturday night.
That's correct.
Right? That Friday night and Saturday night fun, it's important to have some of that, but again, in moderation, and it shouldn't carry on to the rest of the week. So you need to make sure that your first priority is your schooling and your grades.
Okay. So we have a couple minutes left of the hour. I'll give you 1 minute and then I'll finish up. Thank you.
Okay. And what do you want me to do in that minute? Anything I want?
Yeah, anything you want with
Anything
the
I
topic we
want.
have.
Okay. Well, I will just say, last week we talked about a few different things, including some financial aid options. And I don't want to review all of that again, but I do want to encourage people. I know that you've provided this PowerPoint available to your audience. So I want to encourage people to go and review the information there about financial aid, and also all of the tips for successful students, and just review the information. There's much more information there than what we have talked about today. We don't have the time to talk about all of this, but some very good resources that I have found and provided in that PowerPoint. And they do have the links to the original sources.
Yeah. Okay. Mahalo pito Dr. Halaki of Hat Kakoe Pemo Temi Moe family. Thank you for sharing a very important information. And good night.
Good night. It's a pleasure always to be with you.
Okay. Thank you.
Mahalo.
Mahalo. Tua e whamalo maalunga ke te mautolu ko eiki mo e hamatapure mo tukatainu la mo mea mai ki he paenga o e wake tari whalau i he aho whakakoloa ko i whamalo ki a Dr. Halaki ko e wahe whakapofa na ne whai ko mawhau ki a Eni pia tau hoko atu i he wiki kahau ki he kahi mo e katsa e toi lahi pe a whenki mea ne whakapona ka hupau ke vete katoa ia o tufa ke aunga pia honga ke teki mautolo mo mea mai ki he paenga o e wake tari whalau koe lava ko ia e Polokalama mi he substation goni foki a rewa ki he main station ko ia i San Francisco, California e paenga o e wake tari whalau mea whakawhi e te mautolo ke mo mea ki ai pia oa na angango koe lava ko ia e Polokalama ko ia mi California pia hoka lewa ke Polokalama ko ia pia mi he substation i Honolulu, Hawaii. Siwa ki riwai pia mo ki nau tolu te nau whai hangai Polokalama. Pia me ai. So do lau marahiri mo hani i kehe te nau whai hangai Polokalama pia mi San Francisco. Pia ona ngalo ma veni mai pe koe lava koe Polokalama Hawaii. Pia e whoki at lewa ai Polokalama ki substation ko ia i nuka alofa tonga. Pia koe ne lava ko ia Polokalama e substation ko alofa tonga. Koe kakato ia houa e ua whā e whai Polokalama e paenga e wake tari whalau. Kia te koe mo o whaamiri wha mokopuna kaumawha ke ngai whawaka ko ia o mo mea ai. O whalahi ati ki o mo ngai fofonga. Pia whatawange o te rei e mea katoa pe mi apina. Pia hoko atu ai pe ai merino. Pia mo whetokoni aki ai tonga ke whakalalaka ai tonga katoa pe i he ngai tapa ke he kehe e kolo pe pia koe heni ai paenga ai wake tari whalau ma tau mu aia mo whatongia ke ke whakawhihoko taki e tonga kotoa te mamala. Ma o e ofa lahi ke te kumotolo. Ka koe e lava ia o e proklama o e fiafini. Ka mo mea